Chapter 6:16. Welcome, Elder Zhou, to my royal estate. You claim that someone from my royal family had entered the fairy paradise, is that correct? The Dragon King asked Elder Zhou when she arrived before him. And before you answer my question, you should know that I don't respond to false claims nicely. Elder Zhou coldly sneered and said, and you should know that the fairy paradise doesn't respond well to rule breakers. A man with a dragon spatial ring had invaded our territory, and I am here to verify whether he belongs to your family or not. If he doesn't belong to your family, we will immediately execute him. However, if he does turn out to belong to the royal family, our fairy paradise will demand an explanation and compensation. The Dragon King then spoke. While it is true that only the royal family should have a dragon spatial ring, it is also possible for others to obtain the ring through other means. It's rare for this to happen, but it's not impossible. The Dragon King then turned to look at the guard standing beside him and said, what's the result? I have managed to contact all of the men in the royal dragon family and confirm that none of them have entered the fairy paradise, said the guard. Elder Zhou frowned upon hearing the guard's words. If that was true, that would mean the man with the dragon spatial ring doesn't belong to the royal dragon family. As you heard just now, Elder Zhou, we have accountability for all men in the family, so it is not possible for that intruder to belong to our royal family. That's all I need to hear. Then I will let the others know so that they can go ahead and continue with the execution, said Elder Zhou as she retrieved a communication jade slip. I have arrived, father. Why have you summoned me? Shinshir, you are to follow Elder Zhou here to the fairy paradise. There is a person there with the golden dragon robe, and I want you to verify his identity, said the Dragon King, instantly dumbfounding her. Chapter 6:17. Did you just say the golden dragon robe, father? Shinshir asked him with a dumbfounded look on her face. Yes, I did. The Dragon King nodded with a solemn face. We don't have any dragon emperors in this world, so does this mean that someone from the upper heavens came down here? But why the fairy paradise? Shinshir then asked. I am sending you there to answer that question. Hurry up and get moving. If he's really a dragon emperor, we don't want anything to happen to him. If he's real, you should know what to do. I understand. Shinshir then followed Elder Zhou back to the fairy paradise using some sort of special talisman that teleported them there within seconds. Meanwhile, back at the fairy paradise, Yuan was sitting in the corner of the prison cell while silently pondering to himself if there was anything else he could do to get out of this situation. I just wanted to look at the Zither goddess Immortal cave. He sighed inwardly. Eventually, Elder Shui returned to the prison and said to him, take out your golden dragon robe. I need to verify something. Yuan had no choice but to hand over his golden dragon robe to her. At least she didn't ask for the blood essence. He thought to himself as he handed her the golden dragon robe. And she continued, first and foremost, are you really a dragon emperor, or from the royal dragon family for that matter? Although you have the dragon spatial ring and even the golden dragon robe, I am still not entirely convinced that you're one. Yuan didn't immediately respond to her question and took his time pondering how he should respond. Chapter 6:18. Should I tell her the truth? But if they learn that I am not from the royal family? No, I should pretend to be a dragon emperor for my own safety. After pondering for a moment, Yuan has decided to act as though he was from the royal dragon family, as he would be killed if he wasn't. That's right, I am indeed from the royal dragon family, he said to Shinshir in a calm voice. Of course, Shinshir wasn't completely convinced by his words, as there are several questionable points about his claims. First, why has he kept his identity a secret until now? If Head revealed his identity earlier, he wouldn't have been treated so roughly. Secondly, he didn't have concrete proof that he was from a royal family, and they won't be able to verify his identity until they bring him back to their family, where the tools to verify his identity is available. The dragon spatial ring and the golden dragon robe may convince a lot of people, but it won't fool the real royal family. Can you prove it? Shinshir suddenly asked him, still with a smile on her face. And she continued, don't misunderstand my intentions, Senior Yuan, but I have never seen a dragon emperor before, and I want to know for sure so that you can receive my family's full support. I don't blame you for being skeptical. Alright, I will prove it, Yuan said to her before closing his eyes. After a moment of silence, he opened his eyes and activated Dragon Gaze, causing his eyes to glow golden and emit an intimidating aura. Now that I think about it, the dragons at the ancient dragon city didn't show their horns. I wonder if there's a specific reason. Yuan wondered to himself. Chapter 6:19. After talking to each other for a few minutes, Shinshir stood up and said, Please excuse me for a bit, Senior Yuan. I still need to notify my father of the circumstances so that he can prepare accordingly. He's probably shaking in anxiety right now from waiting. Go ahead. Take your time. Yuan nodded. Shinshi then left the scene and went outside to contact her father using a communication jade slip. Shinshi. What is the news? Is this person really a dragon emperor? Her father immediately began questioning her in an anxious manner. Calm down, father. You'll need all of your breath for this, Shinshi said to him. And she continued, it's true, this person is the real deal, a real dragon emperor. The Dragon King stared at the communication jade slip with a look of disbelief on his face. A real dragon emperor? If this is true, they must protect him at all cost. Tell me everything. The Dragon King said. Yes. Shinshi proceeded to explain everything she heard from Yuan to her father. He accidentally arrived in the fairy paradise and actually belongs to the upper heaven? No wonder why he's already a dragon emperor despite being only a spirit grandmaster. I apologize for disappearing so suddenly yesterday without telling you, Yuan said to her. However, to his surprise, Shinshi didn't appear to care about it. In fact, she was oddly dismissive about it, not even bothering to ask any questions. If it's real and these people are not actual NPCs, why don't they question us players when we suddenly disappear? Is something preventing her from caring? Yuan wondered to himself as he silently stared at Shinshi. Chapter 620? Let's test this out, Yuan thought to himself. The next second he logged off the game right in front of Shinshi. Where did he go? Shinshi was baffled by Yuan's sudden disappearance. However, when she tried to think any further about the situation, she suddenly stopped caring for some reason. A moment later, Yuan reappeared before her. Senior? Shinshi looked at him weirdly. What do you think of that? Yuan suddenly asked her. Think of what, Senior? Shinshi tilted her head in a puzzled manner. The way I disappeared and reappeared like a ghost. What do you think about it? You disappeared? When? Shinshi asked, dumbfounding Yuan. Just now. Look, I will even do it again. Yuan proceeded to log off and back in for a second time in front of her. However, Shinshi remained nonchalant about it. You really don't see anything wrong with me disappearing and reappearing so randomly? Yuan asked her. But Senior, you have been standing there this entire time. Are you playing a joke on me? I'm sorry, but I don't understand it. Shinshi shook her head. Sorry, forget about it. Yuan gave up on asking Shinshi. Elder Shui opened the door and entered the room with Yuan and Shinshi. Chapter 621. That's the Fairy Empress? Yuan thought to himself as they approached the figure sitting all the way at the end of the room, and there was another figure standing beside her, who was wearing a uniform that looked similar to Elder Shui's robes. As for the woman sitting on the throne, she was an extremely beautiful woman with long golden hair and emerald-colored eyes. This junior greets the Fairy Empress. Elder Shui bowed to her. She then turned to bow to the woman standing beside the Fairy Empress. This disciple greets the sect master. Seeing Elder Shui greet them, Yuan also prepared to greet them. However, Shinshi stopped him from greeting them before stepping forward. Fairy Empress, the royal dragon family demands you release the Dragon Emperor as soon as possible. If you keep him detained any longer, we will have no choice but to escalate the situation. Yuan stared at Shinshi with wide eyes. The Fairy Empress should be the most powerful person in this world, yet Shinshi dared to speak to her in such a tone. Either the Dragon Royal family is as powerful as the Fairy Empress, or she's incredibly daring. What is this? If you think a drop of blood will save you, the Fairy Empress suddenly stopped speaking when she took a closer look at the drop of blood in the bottle. Whose blood essence does this belong to? She suddenly shouted in a grim voice, startling everyone there. Why don't you take a guess? I will give you a hint. He's the one who created the royal dragon family. Yuan said with a smile on his face. Chapter 622, Blood Essence of a God. Why you don't mean? Shinshi covered her mouth in shock after hearing Yuan's words. Bullshit. The Fairy Empress suddenly stood up and exclaimed in a somewhat angry manner. There's no way this blood essence belongs to the dragon ancestor. She denied his claims. I don't blame you for not believing me. I mean, this is the dragon ancestor that we're talking about. However, I'm not lying to you. If you don't believe me, you can imprison me and wait to find out the truth, though it might be too late then. The Fairy Empress gritted her teeth after hearing Yuan's words. Although she cannot tell whether this blood essence truly belonged to the dragon ancestor or not, She could tell that the blood essence had come from a godlike being due to the unique spiritual energy the blood essence contained. While ordinary cultivators all cultivate the same spiritual energy in the air, once they reach a certain cultivation level, they will need to absorb different types of spiritual energy. For example, a cultivator that has achieved immortality will need to absorb immortal chi in order to continue their progress, and the ordinary spiritual energy in their body will eventually be replaced by immortal chi. Above immortals are godlike beings that can create stars and life with the snap of their finger, and these apex entities will cultivate celestial chi, something that the fairy empress could sense within the blood essence. Therefore, even if this blood essence in her grasp doesn't belong to the dragon ancestor, it doesn't take away from the fact that it came from a godlike being, someone who has reached the peak of cultivation. And if it's true that Yuan has connections to a godlike being, nobody in the fifth heaven can touch him unless they want to die a horrible death. After standing there with a perplexed look on her face, the fairy empress suddenly started laughing like a maniac. Chapter 623. Somewhere in the lower heavens, 3 figures could be seen soaring through the sky at high speed without the assistance of flying treasures. Can either of you feel the young master's presence? It suddenly appeared 3 days ago, but then it disappeared shortly after. A beautiful woman with a lavish figure asked the other 2 figures, who were a little girl and a graceful young lady. Of course, these 3 were Yuan's companions that had gone on a journey without him for the last few months. I cannot feel Brother Yuan's presence, Xiaohua said. Me neither. Lan Yingying shook her head. And here I thought the young master has finally returned to us. Feng Yuxiang released a deep sigh. Anyways, this is where the young master's presence disappeared from. It turned out to be the Heavenly Melody Academy. Feng Yuxiang said as they hovered above the Heavenly Melody Academy. What should we do now? Lan Yingying asked. In response to Lan Yingying's question, Xiaohua began flying towards the Heavenly Melody Academy, before descending into the inner court. Xiaohua's sudden appearance shocked the disciples there, as only spirit grandmasters have the capability to fly without the assistance of flying treasures or flying swords. And when Feng Yuxiang and Lan Yingying also descended onto the ground from the sky, the disciples' shock turned into fear. Why did 3 experts suddenly appear in the middle of their sect? However, before any disciple could approach them, Song Linger noticed their presence and appeared before them. If they learn the truth, I might as well return to the fairy paradise since it would be safer there. Yuan cried inwardly as he greeted the Shin family. Chapter 624. Hello everyone. Thank you for the warm welcome, but I'd prefer it if you guys acted more casual and informal when around me. Yuan said to them after seeing them treat him as though he was some kind of emperor. My name is Yuan, and you can call me as such. The people there looked at each other with doubtful gazes. Can they really address a dragon emperor so casually? They want receive divine punishment from their ancestor for doing so? If you say so, Yuan. The Dragon King said. Anyways, let us introduce ourselves. The royal family then began introducing themselves starting from the Dragon King. Once everyone there was done, the Dragon King invited Yuan inside the building. By any chance are you hungry? We are preparing for a feast right now. The Dragon King asked him sometime later after they were all sitting down. I am a little hungry. Yuan nodded. In the meantime, if there's anything we can help you with, I am trying to find a way back to my own world, but am not sure how I even got to this place in the first place. Can you describe to me what had happened before you came here? The Dragon King asked. Yuan proceeded to recall everything that had happened. As expected of a dragon emperor, even his food consumption is top tier. Look at how quickly he's cleaning up the plates. He's treating the food as though they are air. Chapter 625. After entering the Zither Goddess Immortal Cave, Xiaohua and the others immediately began looking around. However, they quickly realized that besides the teleport formation, there was essentially nothing else inside the Immortal Cave. There's nothing in here. Song Linger was left speechless by this discovery, as she has always believed that there were treasures inside the Immortal Cave. Meanwhile, Feng Yuxiang took her time analyzing the formation on the ground despite not being an expert. I'm no formation expert, but by the looks of it, this formation is a one-way teleport formation, and judging by the complexity of the design, it's a fairly powerful one. Can you tell where it took Brother Yuan? Xiaohua asked her. Unfortunately, only the creator of this formation would have this information. Feng Yuxiang shook her head. Then is there any way to activate it? Lan Yingying asked. You can normally activate a teleport formation by pouring enough spiritual energy inside it, but there are also formations that only activate under certain circumstances. We can try injecting our spiritual energy into this formation, but I don't have any hopes it'll do anything. Stand back, Xiao Hua said as she began pouring her spiritual energy into the formation. However, no matter how much spiritual energy she fed the formation, it remained inactive. You said the young master played some sort of song with the zither before he was teleported away? Feng Yuxiang turned to ask Song Linger, who nodded. What? Song Linger's eyes widened with shock by this unexpected news. Chapter 626. After returning to the lower heavens, Yuan immediately began making his way back to the Heavenly Melody Academy. When he got close enough, Feng Yuxiang's voice suddenly resounded in his head. Young master, are you okay? Feng? Yuan was delighted to hear her voice after so long. Where are you right now? Feng Yuxiang then asked. I am currently heading to the Heavenly Melody Academy. Is that so? Then we will wait for you here. You're at the Heavenly Melody Academy right now? What? Yuan asked. We sensed your presence here, but it disappeared before we could arrive. What? I will explain everything to you later once I return. Okay. See you later, young master. Feng Yuxiang then explained to Xiao Hua and the others that Yuan was heading back to the Heavenly Melody Academy. Is everything okay with Yuan? Song Linger asked. Yes, he sounded fine. Feng Yuxiang nodded. Thank the heavens. If anything had happened to him? Song Linger released a long sigh of relief after learning that Yuan was not harmed. He then turned to look at the guards and commanded, Find out what happened to the Dragon Emperor. I don't believe that he'd leave without telling us. Something must have happened to him and I want to know what. Chapter 627. After commanding the guards to look for Yuan, the Dragon King gathered his family to notify them of the situation. What? Senior Yuan disappeared from his room? Shen Shi exclaimed in a shocked voice. And she continued, Are you sure he didn't leave his room to go somewhere? I have confirmed this with the guards. He hasn't left his room since he entered it, and the windows were still locked when I went to check on him. The Dragon King shook his head. Furthermore, the guards had sensed a disturbance inside his room before he disappeared, so there's a good chance that something had forced him to disappear. Why would anyone want to kidnap the Dragon Emperor? Someone there asked. Maybe it's the fairy paradise. What if they released him so that they cannot be held accountable if anything happens to him afterward? Another person there speculated. That makes sense. How despicable. It must be the fairy paradise. I found it suspicious how they allowed the Dragon Emperor to leave so easily. The majority of the royal family believed that the fairy paradise was responsible for Yuan's disappearance at this point. Calm down, everyone. The Dragon King eventually spoke. Although we are not always on good terms, I know the fairy empress very well. She is not the type to do something like this. At least I hope that's the case. Anyways, I will speak with the fairy empress later. Until then, you guys try to look for the Dragon Emperor. Do you still want me to do it? Yuan asked. Of course. I will gather the disciples again. We will be ready for your performance tomorrow. Song Linger eagerly nodded. Great, Yuan said. Chapter 628. After letting Yuan know that she will gather the disciples tomorrow for his performance, Song Linger left the place. We have some time until tomorrow, so why don't you tell me a little about your adventure? Yuan then asked the three ladies in the room. It honestly wasn't that exciting, as we'd spent most of our time wandering and killing magical beasts so that Lan Yingying could consume them. Feng Yuxiang said. That's fine. Even if it's boring, I want to hear all of it. Yuan said with a calm smile on his face. Lan Yingying nodded, and she proceeded to recall their adventure with Yuan, which took up the rest of the day. I'm glad that nobody was hurt, Yuan said to them after hearing their story, as they'd encountered a few dangerous-sounding situations. Of course, even though it sounded like they were in danger, the truth was anything but that, as they were all peak experts of this world, and with a spirit king like Xiao Hua with them, it was impossible to get hurt even if they want to get hurt. What about you, young master? That is, if you don't mind sharing. Feng Yuxiang asked him out of curiosity. Well, I had to fight a demon and was nearly killed, Yuan said with a bittersweet smile on his face. What? Feng Yuxiang exclaimed in a shocked voice. Demon? A real demon? Even Lan Yingying was startled by the news. Yes, a real demon. But how is that possible? I thought they only existed in the mystic realm. Feng Yuxiang mumbled in a low voice. It was a sealed demon that had broken out of its seal after being sealed for many years, he sighed. Plus 28,000 stats. Chapter 629. Yuan emerged from the bathtub after absorbing all of the medicine, which helped him break through to the next level of Spirit Grandmaster. Congratulations on your breakthrough, young master. Feng Yuxiang said to him when she noticed him coming out of the bathroom. It's all thanks to your treasures. Yuan smiled. And he continued, I don't really know how to repay you. You don't have to repay me, young master. I am your servant, thus everything that belongs to me also belongs to you. I am not that shameless to accept free things without returning a favor. Furthermore, it's all precious treasures that would definitely cost a fortune if you were to sell them. I cannot accept that much for free. However, the only thing I can really give you right now is my blood. Yuan sighed. Speaking of my blood, I haven't given you any of my blood for some time now. Do you want to drink some right now? Yuan then asked her after realizing this. Feng Yuxiang shook her head with a bittersweet smile. Is there something wrong? You are normally very excited for my blood. Yuan asked her. There's nothing wrong, young master. It's just that I am afraid that you might cure my curse too quickly, forcing me to return to the upper heavens. She finally decided to reveal her reason for her hesitation. Isn't that what you wanted? To cure the curse as soon as possible? Yuan raised his eyebrows in a confused manner. Indeed, that's what I wanted at first, but after spending some time with you, I realized that I wanted to stay by your side for a little longer. If I consume your blood and the curse breaks, my cultivation will no longer be suppressed, so I will have to return to the upper heavens, and I don't want that to happen. It doesn't matter. After all, whatever you play will turn out to be flawless, she smiled. Chapter 630. Yuan took a moment to ponder what songs he wanted to play. Senior song, I can play multiple songs, right? Of course. You can play as many songs as you'd like, she immediately responded. Yuan nodded and took a seat on the platform before retrieving his soul-ensnaring zither. A couple of disciples there recognized the soul-ensnaring zither, as they tried to play it before. Is that the real soul-ensnaring zither? The one that used to be owned by the zither goddess? It's probably just a replica, right? No, I heard that someone had managed to obtain it after successfully playing it. As the disciples murmured to each other, Yuan pulled on the string of the zither and began his first of many songs that would be played on that day. When the disciples heard the music note, they immediately closed their mouths and focused on Yuan, who was calmly sitting on the platform. The first song that Yuan decided to play was something Fei Yuyan had taught him. The second song was something from his own world. The third and fourth song was something he learned from the 9th floor of the music pagoda. The fifth and sixth song was also from the music pagoda, and it was on the 10th floor. Welcome back, Yuan. Long Yijuan and the other sect elders greeted him with broad smiles on their faces. Chapter 631. Hello everyone. It's been a while. Yuan greeted Long Yijuan and the other sect elders. It's only been a few months. This amount of time is nothing in the cultivation world. Elder Xian said with a smile on his face. Madame Feng, seniors, welcome to the Dragon Essence Temple. Long Yijuan then greeted Feng Yuxiang and the others. I heard you're going to challenge the stairway to heaven soon, is that right? You grow up so quickly. Elder Shan approached him until she was standing directly behind him. She then wrapped her arms around him and embraced him in a playful manner. I swear it wasn't long ago that you were a spirit warrior. Your talents are screwing with my sense of time, she sighed. Although the others would normally call out her shamelessness, the sect elders remained silent this time. Once she had enough, Elder Shan released Yuan and asked him, Are you going to challenge the stairway to heaven right after leaving this place? I still have one place to visit after this, but once that is done I will challenge the stairway, he said. How long do you plan on staying here? Elder Shen asked him. I probably won't stay too long since I only have to pick up someone before I am ready to leave. Who are you picking up? Long Yijuan raised his brows. Minli, he calmly said. Minli from the Min family? Why are you picking her up? Long Yijuan continued to ask. Seeing the painful smile on Fei Yuyan's face, Yuan decided to not continue his sentence and merely nodded in silence. Chapter 632. Hey Yuan, before you leave, can we play the zither again for a bit? Fei Yuyan suddenly asked him after a moment of awkward silence. Of course. He immediately agreed. Let's do it at my backyard like we used to. Okay. Fei Yuyan turned to look at Elder Shan and said, I'm sorry, master, but I will end my training early today. Do as you please. Elder Shan nodded. Yuan then followed Fei Yuyan back to her living quarters. Once they were in the backyard, they sat down beside each other with their zither out. The soul-ensnaring zither? What happened to the divine-grade zither you obtained at the competition? Fei Yuyan asked him. Oh, that thing? I sold it. Yuan casually said. Why you sold a divine-grade treasure? Fei Yuyan's eyes widened with disbelief. I didn't need it since I already have the soul-ensnaring zither, and I needed the money back then. Yuan shrugged. But the soul-ensnaring zither isn't really a treasure. While that is true, it still performs the same if not a little better than the divine-grade zither. In the end, it's not like I will be using it as a weapon, so it really doesn't matter to me. I guess so. However, if one looked at the direction of their gazes, that reason would become obvious. Of course, they were flustered after seeing the beauties with Yuan. Chapter 633. Hello, I am here to see Minli. I was told by the Dragon Essence Temple that she had returned home not long ago. Yuan said to the guards while they were still dazed by the beauties around him. Why, young lady Min? What business do you have with her? I am here to fulfill a promise I made to her. I'm sorry, but the Min family is not accepting any visitors at this moment, as they are currently preparing for the young lattice marriage. The guard then said, taking Yuan by surprise. What? Marriage? Minli is getting married? Yes, the Min family suddenly announced her marriage with Gu Tao from the Gu family, their third eldest son. The Gu family. Yuan recalled when someone from the Gu family tried to recruit him to their family when he was still a disciple of the Dragon Essence Temple, and he mentioned that the Gu family was one of the 7 legacy families. As for Minli marrying this Gu Tao, it was obviously something that her family decided for her. Yuan could still remember Minli pleading with him to join her family so that they wouldn't do something like this to her. Looks like I had made her wait too long. Yuan sighed inwardly. However, knowing that Minli was most likely forced into this marriage by her family, Yuan was more inclined to meet with her. Once the guard left, he immediately ran to the Min family to notify them of the situation. What? Madame Feng from the Golden Phoenix Bazaar is here? What? The head of the Min family, Minida, asked the guard. Chapter 634. Apparently, her young master is here to meet with young lady Minli. The guard responded to Min Yid's question. Young master? Minida suddenly burst out laughing after hearing the guard's words. Are you sure she's the real Madame Feng? First of all, Madame Feng left the Golden Phoenix Bazaar a while ago and hasn't been seen since then. Why would she suddenly show up here for Minli? And her young master? I know Madame Feng very well. There's no way that she'd lower herself for another individual. She's a fake. A fake, I tell you. Minida continued laughing. Then what about the royal guest medallion? The guard asked. Did anyone verify if it was real or fake? And no. It would have been disrespectful to Madame Feng, as verifying the medallion is akin to doubting her credibility. The guard shook his head. Just kick them out. Although he had a bad feeling about Min Yid's orders, the guard didn't dare to disobey him. As you command. Please excuse this subordinate. The guard quickly returned to Yuan and the others to notify them of Min Yid's response. I'm sorry, but you'll have to leave this place now. What? Yuan looked at him with wide eyes. Yeah? D-disciple Yuan? Is that really you? Min Li's eyes widened with shock the instant she saw his handsome face, and she immediately wondered if she had accidentally dozed off into dreamland, hence the current situation that shouldn't be possible. Chapter 635. Ah, I must be dreaming. There's no way he'd be here. Min Li released a low laugh before shaking her head and returning to staring outside the window. Who's dreaming? Yuan asked her. After a moment of silence, Min Li turned to look at him again, her eyes wider than before. Are you real? Am I not asleep? Are you really disciple Yuan? Min Li asked for confirmation. Why are you still calling me disciple Yuan? I am no longer a disciple of the Dragon Essence Temple. Just call me Yuan, disciple Min, Yuan said with a gentle smile on his face. And he continued, also, I am here to fulfill my promise. Min Li's body visibly trembled when she heard his words. Meanwhile, Minida stared at Yuan from the side with a look of disbelief on his face. Why Yuan? He can't be. Impossible. Minida refused to believe that he was the same Yuan who dominated the mystic realm, the same Yuan that they have been desperately trying to recruit. Why is he here? I thought Min Li failed to recruit him. Minida cried inwardly. He was clearly Gu Tao, Min Li's fiancé. Min-Ida took a deep breath before responding in a solemn voice, Min-Li is not here, she has abandoned the Min family. What? The Gu family stared at him with baffled expressions, seemingly unable to comprehend the situation at first, and the place turned dead silent very quickly. Chapter 636. Let me repeat myself just in case you missed it. Min-Ida cleared his throat and continued. Min-Li has left the Min family, so she is no longer part of our family. I'm sorry, but we will have to cancel the wedding between Min-Li and Gu Tao, he said, speaking in a clearer tone this time. Once they snapped out of their daze, Gu Tao screamed loudly, bullshit. I am not going to cancel the wedding. Where did she go? I will bring her back myself if I have to. My son is right, Min-Ida. We have already expended too many resources on this wedding, and news of the wedding has already spread everywhere. If we cancel it now, both of our families be laughingstocks for the rest of the century. Do you really want that to happen? Min-Ida merely sighed at their words and said, I understand your feelings and anger, but there is truly nothing I can do in this situation. As for bringing her back, that's also not possible. Nonsense. Tell me where she is and I will bring her back even if it's by force. Gu Tao shouted. Min-Ida glared at Gu Tao for a moment before responding in a low voice, Stairway to Heaven. If you really want to bring her back, you can find her at the Stairway to Heaven. However, don't say I didn't warn you. You really don't want to offend them. Them? Who are you talking about? And why on earth would she be going to the Stairway to Heaven? She's only a spirit warrior. The head of the Gu family frowned. However, Min-Ida turned around and began walking away. I wish you the best of luck. Once again, I apologize for this inconvenience. This isn't over yet, Min-Ida. The Gu family left the place shortly after, and they were still fuming in anger after they left. Are we going to go to the Stairway to Heaven now? Gu Tao asked his father. Obviously. We cannot let this marriage end in such a ridiculous manner. We are bringing her back even if we have to drag her back. Thus, the Gu family began making their way to the Stairway to Heaven instead of going home, still unaware of the full situation. Meanwhile, after leaving the Min family, Min-Li asked Yuan, are we heading straight to the Stairway to Heaven right now? Actually, there's still one more place I want to visit before leaving the lower heavens, he said. Chapter 637. Lord Luo. The hero has returned. I repeat, the hero has returned. A guard came rushing into Lord Luo's room without knocking. Hero? What nonsense are you talking about? We are having an important discussion right now. Scram. Lord Luo got angry when his important meeting was interrupted, not to mention the grave situation that has been stressing him lately. Sorry for interrupting your meeting, but I heard you need some help, so I came. Yuan entered the room a few moments later. However, because of how drastically different his appearance was compared to his last visit, especially his longer hair, Lord Luo didn't recognize Yuan at first. Why you are? Once Lord Luo got a good look at Yuan's handsome face, his body immediately began shivering from sheer excitement, and he even began crying. Daoist Yuan. Is that really you, Daoist Yuan? Lord Luo couldn't control his emotions and spoke as though he was before his savior. You have changed, grown so much in just a few months. I almost didn't recognize you. It's really me, Yuan confirmed with a gentle nod. Then he continued, can you tell me what's troubling you in the city? If there's anything I can do to help, please take a seat first. Lord Luo suddenly stopped talking when he finally noticed the four beauties standing behind Yuan. Chapter 638. Unfortunately, there really isn't much you can do against the blood sect. Even if you kill their sect master, another one will eventually rise to that spot. You can maybe try killing all of the higher-ups in the blood sect, but that is easier said than done. There's a reason they have existed for thousands of years despite countless experts trying to wipe them out. Feng Yuxiang said to him. Yuan pondered about Feng Yuxiang's words. If he cannot do anything against the blood sect, what should he do about Pang City's situation? It was not as though he could give up and abandon them. After thinking for a moment, Yuan turned to look at Lord Luo and said, do you mind if I stay here for a few days? I will try to come up with a solution and just in case they attack. Of course. You can stay here for as long as you want. Lord Luo immediately said. Suddenly, one of the people there said, I'm sorry, but what can you do against the blood sect? The blood sect has multiple spirit masters, and their sect master is also a spirit grandmaster. Not even an entire sect can stop them, much less a couple of young people. I say we evacuate the city and seek protection from one of the bigger sects such as the Heaven and Earth Palace or the Grand Sword Mountain. Everyone there turned to look at Yuan for a response. Even Lord Luo, who had immense faith in him, cannot imagine a spirit warrior defending against the blood sect. Of course, he was not aware that Yuan had become a spirit grandmaster during the few months he was gone. It's just a few spirit masters. My young master can handle even a spirit lord, much less a spirit grandmaster. Feng Yuxiang suddenly sneered. What? A spirit lord? Yuan then released his spirit grandmaster aura and said, I alone can defend the city from the blood sect. As a spirit grandmaster? How is that possible? You were only a spirit warrior before you left a few months ago. Lord Luo exclaimed. What? A spirit warrior? The others were also shocked. What? The sisters' eyes widened with shock after learning this information. They then got on their knees and apologized for their behavior. Meanwhile, Yuan and Xiaohua arrived at the Flying Sword sect, at least what it once used to be. Chapter 639. This is the Flying Sword sect? Yuan stood before where the sect should have been located with a clear look of disbelief on his face. However, the Flying Sword sect was nowhere to be seen. Instead, destroyed buildings and dried blood scattered the place. The scenery is what it would look like after a long and brutal war had just finished. Yuan mumbled in a low voice. Thousands of lives perished here for what? What does the blood sect achieve by doing this horrible thing? It won't bring back their sect master's dead son. Unfortunately, this is the harsh reality of the cultivation world, the real cultivation world where people do unreasonable things and there's nothing we can do about it. Xiaohua sighed. After a moment of silence, Yuan said, Let's take a look around this place. Are you sure, Brother Yuan? There will be a lot of blood and corpses. It won't be a pretty sight. Yuan nodded. Even so, I want to see it. They proceeded to walk around the unrecognizable and destroyed Flying Sword sect, passing by many corpses and separated body parts. Yuan stopped walking in front of 3 large stone tablets, which were the only things not completely destroyed there. He looked at the stone tablet in the middle and on the very top, there was a name he was familiar with. Emojo. So you have managed to become rank 1, huh? Congratulations. Yuan congratulated him in a dispirited voice. What do you think you're doing? Our sect master is a spirit grandmaster. He'll kill you as easy as breathing. The blood sect disciples began shivering uncontrollably as they watched Yuan slowly approach them with a sadistic grin on his face. As a killer, you should know very well what I am about to do, right? Yuan responded, his aura gushing with killing intent. Chapter 640. Stop. Let us go. Our blood sect will hunt you and your 9 generations down if you harm us. The blood sect disciples shouted. Yuan stopped walking once he was in front of these people and he took a long and deep breath. A strong smell of blood and corpses immediately assaulted his nose. Ha! He released a long sigh before speaking. I don't blame you for killing people. It's the nature of cultivators after all. However, if you're going to kill someone, you better have a damn good reason. After this sentence, Yuan suddenly lifted the Empyrean Overlord and pointed it at one of the blood sect disciples. And killing these disciples for your own entertainment is not a good reason. This is why I despise evil sections. You guys are a bunch of boring individuals. The blood sect disciple being pointed at suddenly felt a sharp pain coming from his throat, but he was too scared of Yuan's cold gaze to move, not to mention the pressure restricting his body, so he wasn't sure what was causing this pain. However, the other blood sect disciples saw it clearly. Yuan was slowly pushing the tip of his sword into their fellow disciple's throat, penetrating the skin on his neck with no resistance like it was tofu. Stop. Are you really not afraid of the blood sect? Our fellow disciples will definitely avenge us and hunt you down. They began shouting. Hunt me? Ah. Yuan moved the sword an inch forward, causing blood to flow from the disciple's neck. He then spoke while continuing to push the sword deeper into the disciple's throat. How will the blood sect learn of this if I kill all of you? How will you tell them? As a ghost? By the time Yuan finished his sentence, the sword was already halfway through the disciple's neck. Of course, the disciple was already dead at this stage, but Yuan didn't retrieve his sword and continued to push his sword forward until the disciple's head was completely separated from his body. I guess you can say that. Yuan smiled calmly. Chapter 641. Why you will regret this. You will now be hunted by the entire blood sect. The blood sect disciple disappeared from the scene quickly afterward. Yuan turned to look at the people that had been treasure hunting before getting caught by the blood sect and said to them, "If you don't want to die like them, get out of this place." "Why yes. Thank you, senior." They quickly left the scene as well. Once Yuan was alone with Xiaohua, the place became dead silent. Yuan closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, his eyes were no longer vicious but innocent, and his entire demeanor changed. Yuan looked at the corpses in front of him, as well as the decapitated body with a perplexing emotion in his heart. After standing there in silence for a few moments, he turned around and said to Xiaohua, "Let's go back for now." Xiaohua quietly nodded and followed him. The entire journey back to Pang City was a quiet one with neither of them starting a conversation. While they walked, Yuan pondered inwardly, that person was neither the Demon Sealing Clan's founder nor the other two, so who was he? Could it be another one of my reincarnations? No. I have seen him before. Yuan suddenly recalled the bloody dream he had when he got his faction symbol after joining the Celestial Overlords. Could it be him? His demeanor and aura felt just like that person. Just who was he? Now he wondered if he was a murderer in one of his past life, as he was completely tranquil when killing the blood sect disciples, almost like it was natural for him to have blood on his hands. Chapter 642. After eating to their full, Yuan and the others returned to the Luo family's manor. "Young master, do you want to temper your body tonight as well?" Feng Yuxiang asked him after they returned. "That would be ideal." Yuan nodded. "Just let me know whenever you're ready." Okay. Yuan logged off shortly after to eat dinner, and he would explain to them the situation at the table. "Because of this evil sect called the Blood Sect that might attack this city, I will be staying in this city for a few more days before we challenge the stairway to heaven." Sounds troublesome. What do evil sects even do, anyway? Chu Liuxiang asked. "I don't know the purpose of their existence. All I know is that they're filled with unreasonable people who kill innocent people for their own entertainment, and they cultivate forbidden techniques that make them go crazy." Once dinner was finished, Meishio said, "Yuan, the Cultivators Association contacted me this afternoon. They said we can visit them whenever because they have finished scouting for our faction's headquarters." "Really? We can visit them tomorrow since I have 3 days before I fight the Blood Sect." "All right, I will let them know tomorrow morning." Chapter 643. "Hey Yuan. It's been a while. How have y'all been?" Wang Ming greeted them with the others behind him. "Hello everyone. Everything's been great on our side. What about you guys?" "It was very boring since we couldn't really train in the hotel we were staying at. We've been waiting for our own headquarters so that we can train all we want." Yuan smiled and said, "Then let's see what the Cultivators Association has in store for us." Upon arriving at the Cultivators Association, they could see Chairman Li standing by the entrance, clearly waiting for their arrival. "Good morning everyone. Our Cultivators Association has managed to find 5 headquarters that fit your requirements, and they're all in this city. We'll go look at each of them whenever you're ready." "We can go look at them right now," Yuan said. "Very well. Please follow me. We have prepared transportation for you all." Yuan and the others followed Chairman Li to the parking lot, where a long limousine was waiting, and it had more than enough room to fit all 10 of them. Once they were seated, Chairman Li got into the driver's seat and personally managed the car, acting as their personal chauffeur despite his status within the Cultivators Association. As they began moving, Chairman Li said, "There should a yellow envelope on the table. You can find information and images of the headquarters we've scouted. Take a look at it if you'd like." Yuan opened the yellow envelope and took out the papers inside. "There's only information on 4 headquarters here. I thought we had 5. Yuan asked after realizing this. 3 hours later, the car stopped in front of a small but tall mountain that was surrounded by a thick wall. As for the location of the mountain itself, they were in a very secluded area with no other buildings around, almost like they were in the wilderness. "We have arrived," Chairman Li said to them. Chapter 644. "Wow, the dragon in its name is really fitting." Wang Ming mumbled to himself as he looked through the car window. The mountain itself wasn't anything too special, but the road that spirals around the mountain had the appearance of a dragon, making it seem as though there was a dragon coiling around the mountain. While they admired the mountain, Chairman Li pulled up to the gates and spoke to the guards there. "I'm Chairman Li from the Cultivators Association, and I have with me the Demon Sealing faction. We're here as scheduled." Once the guards verified his identity, they opened the gates to allow them inside. Take your time. Thank you. The moment they entered the gates, it felt as though they had entered another world, as the spiritual energy suddenly spiked up. Yuan was pleasantly surprised by this. Although it wasn't as powerful as the spiritual energy in the Immortal caves, they were only at the entrance of the mountain, the lowest level. He can only imagine how much stronger the spiritual energy gets as they go higher into the mountain. Where will our headquarters be located? Lang asked. The middle levels. I tried getting you guys a headquarters at the upper levels, but you don't have even credibility. Don't be discouraged though, as you can always move to the upper levels once you're ready. Furthermore, getting a building in the middle level is already an amazing feat for a new faction with only 10 members. Chairman Li said. Everyone there turned to look at Yuan. Surely he's the reason they were allowed to even step foot inside the Dragon Spiral Mountain. Sometime later, Chairman Li stopped the car somewhere in the middle level of the Dragon Spiral Mountain. Chapter 645. So yeah, we need $3.5 billion for our faction's headquarters. Wang Ming called his parents to let them know of the situation. $3.5 billion? Are you buying a house on the moon or something? Why the heck is it so expensive? No, it's a house in the Dragon Spiral Mountain. What? The Dragon Spiral Mountain? Chem? You know of it? Of course. It's one of the most suitable places in this world for cultivators. If it were not for our family size that consists of 6 different families, we would have moved there. I see. Anyways, I will give you Yuan's bank information. You can send it to him whenever you're ready. You sound very confident that we'll give you the money? Wang Ming's father said. You're not? I will let Yuan know right now if that's the case. Wait. I was only joking. Let me speak with the others first, but I'm sure we'll be able to help him. Even if he needs twice that amount, we'll be willing to help our savior. His father said. After what happened at the Jaded Garden, the people there now address Yuan as their savior. Wang Ming hung up the phone shortly after and said to Yuan, our family should be sending the money to you as soon as possible. Thank you. He nodded. Sometime later, they returned to the Cultivators Association. As for Yuan, he went in to temper his body again with Lan Yingying. The following morning, they loaded the small luggage into the limousine while Meishio effortlessly carried the piano into the truck rented by Sebastian, shocking the pedestrians with her absurd strength. Once they were ready to move, they began making their way to the Dragon Spiral Mountain. Chapter 646. A few hours after leaving their apartment, Yuan and the others arrived at the gates of the Dragon Spiral Mountain, and to their surprise, Wang Ming and the others were all waiting outside with their luggage. Why are you all waiting out here? Yuan asked them. We couldn't get inside because we don't have any identification even though we were here yesterday. Wang Ming sighed. All right. Chairman Li only gave me one identification for now. I really hope you guys didn't stay here overnight. No, we only got here about an hour ago, so it wasn't that bad. Yuan nodded, and he went to the guards to show them his identification. Welcome to the Dragon Spiral Mountain, young Master Yuan. The guards greeted him. Where can I get identifications for my companions so they can enter the place without me? Yuan asked them. The manager will handle all of that once she visits you later today, said the guards. I understand. Once the gates were opened, Yuan and the others made their way to their new home in the middle of the mountain. Yuan, you can go ahead and pick your room first. We'll decide afterward. Wang Ming said to him. Well, they're all pretty much the same, so it doesn't really matter to me. How about this one? It's the largest room in this building and it's also the closest to the staircase. Lang suggested. Sure. What about you two? Yuan asked Meishio and Chu Liuxiang. I understand. Thank you. Yuan said as he accepted the badges. Any more questions for me before I leave? Chapter 647. I actually do have one. What kind of person is the Lord of the Dragon Spiral Mountain? Yuan asked her. The Lord, huh? Why do you want to know about him? The manager held a mysterious smile on her face. Out of curiosity, I guess, Yuan said. Unfortunately, I cannot tell you anything about the Lord. However, if you live here for long enough, you might get to see him. Is that so? Anyways, if you have questions about the mountain, you can contact me at any time of the day. Here's my business card. The manager handed her card to them. Jenny Zhang. Yuan read the name on the business card. You can just call me Jenny. After shaking hands with each other, manager Jenny left the scene. Since this finished earlier than expected, he'll go spar with Li Jingsky now, Yuan said as he stood up. What are you going to do now? Not sure, honestly. In fact, I'm wondering what my purpose is now. Am I still your caretaker? It really doesn't feel like it since I have been spending most of my time cultivating. Meishio asked him. Yuan pondered for a moment before speaking. We're no longer in a small home with just the two of us. There's Lulu and the others, not to mention the faction. Furthermore, I will be spending most of my time in now, so I won't need any attention. Instead of remaining as my caretaker, why don't you do something different? Like being the manager of the faction? Chapter 648. What? Yuan? What is he doing in the mountain? Even if Chu Liuxiang is with him, he shouldn't be able to enter the mountain without the Lord's permission. Chu Shijian, Chu Luxiang's foster father, said in a surprised voice. He actually moved into the mountain, and he's currently living in the middle level of the Dragon Spiral Mountain, Sebastian explained to him. He moved into the mountain. How is that even possible? Although I have no doubt that he'll be able to live here in the future, he shouldn't have the qualifications to enter this place yet. I was also surprised when I heard it, but the Lord approved it and he moved in just today. Chu Shijian closed his eyes to ponder. What do you think of him? This Yuan. The woman sitting beside Chu Shijian suddenly asked. He's a very talented individual. Perhaps even more talented than our top geniuses. Although I haven't spent much time with him or seen his full potential, I believe he's someone worthy of our attention. Sebastian said. I haven't seen you praise someone like this before, Sebastian. He must have really impressed you. The woman smiled. He nodded and said, while I didn't witness it for myself, it is true that Head defeated the demon that was supposedly as strong as a cultivator at the peak spirit grandmaster. I have also watched him practice with the 6 spiritual family's geniuses. He's the real deal. If you never fought one yourself, how do you know that demons are really that powerful? If you ask me, I think they exaggerated the demon's power. Exaggerated, huh? I really can't tell you since I wasn't there to witness it. Sebastian shook his head. Why did you let him go alone? What if something happens to him? Feng Yuxiang asked Xiaohua afterward. This is Brother Yuan's decision. We can only believe in him, she calmly responded. Chapter 649. Where is Taoist Yuan? Lord Luo asked Xiaohua and the others after he left, unaware of the situation. The young master left not long ago to deal with the blood sect, said Feng Yuxiang. Lord Luo looked at the three of them. If they're all here, this meant that Yuan had gone to deal with the blood sect by himself. Seeing Lord Luo's expression, Lan Yingying said, Yuan will be fine. Don't underestimate him. I understand. Meanwhile, at the Flying Sword sect, Yuan stood before the 3 stone tablets with a tranquil expression on his face. However, inside his mind he was trying to communicate with somebody. Are you going to show up today and take control of my body like last time? You like killing people, right? He would rather let the handsome man take control of his body so that he doesn't have to personally kill the blood sect, and he would feel less guilt that way. Unfortunately, the handsome man would not respond no matter how much Yuan tried to summon him. Yuan sighed. And for the next 2 hours he would patiently wait for the blood sect to show up at the 3 stone tablets. Chapter 650. Whoosh. Ah. Bang. Ayag. Blood and body parts scattered all over the place as Yuan continued to swing the Empyrean overlord without mercy. Tens, hundreds of disciples from the blood sect were slaughtered at the hands of Yuan's, yet their sect master, Lord Blood, remained hovering in the sky without moving a single finger, silently watching his disciples getting slaughtered in the bulk with a cold gaze. Of course, he never really expected the disciples that were mostly spirit apprentices and spirit warriors to capture Yuan, who was a spirit grandmaster. Even if he had tens of thousands of disciples, it would not be enough for a spirit grandmaster. His only motive was to tire out Yuan with his disciples so that he would have a better time taking him down later. In other words, he was sacrificing his own disciples for himself. As for the disciples, they had no choice but to fight Yuan, even if they might die. After all, if they don't listen to Lord Blood, they will definitely die at the hands of their own sect master. Get him. He won't be able to defeat all of us. For Lord Blood. The disciples continued to rush at Yuan despite his overwhelming presence. Heavenly Domain. A profound aura suddenly appeared around Yuan, instantly pressuring before flattening the disciples there into meat paste. Blood splattered all over Yuan's body and face, but when the blood touched his golden dragon robes, they would slide right off, almost as though it was coated in a thick layer of liquid-resistant substance. However, the blood on his face remained, and some of it even got into his eyes, making it seem as though he was crying blood. Ah! Yuan swung again and another dozen people died. What exactly am I doing? I can't feel anything. Yuan wondered inwardly. He has subconsciously swung the Empyrean Overlord in every direction. There's something hitting my face. Is it raining? Why am I doing this again? You're doing this to protect the innocent, just like you always have. Another voice suddenly resounded in his head. Who are you? Me? You should already know the answer to that question. The voice responded. And it continued, the sensation of their flesh tearing apart, the smell of blood, the profound atmosphere, their blood-curdling screams. Remember it all. Flashbacks began occurring inside Yuan's head, but he still managed to fight the blood sect. After an unknown amount of time have passed, Yuan snapped out of his flashbacks, finding himself in the middle of a bloodbath. Yuan then explained the situation to them and how he fought against the entire blood sect by himself. Chapter 651. Young Master. Don't blame yourself. You did nothing wrong by killing those evil cultivators. Feng Yuxiang spoke a moment after Yuan explained his battle with the blood sect, as there was a clear sense of guilt within his eyes as he explained how he killed thousands of disciples from the blood sect. However, Yuan shook his head and sighed in a low voice. You're wrong. I am neither feeling guilt nor self-blame because I killed those evil cultivators. I am worried because I don't feel any sympathy even after killing so many people. Even now, I cannot feel anything. Is there something wrong with me? That's completely normal, young master. It just means your consciousness doesn't find anything wrong with killing some evildoers. I can assure you that there's nothing wrong with you. You're just growing up, as a cultivator. That's it. Growing up, huh? Yuan sighed. Sometime later, Yuan said to Lord Luo, Pang City should be safe now that the blood sect is gone. Thank you, Taoist Yuan. Once again you have saved our city. Lord Luo stood up and bowed to him. Unfortunately, our family doesn't have anything else to give you, as I had already given you our most valuable treasure. The Starry Abyss, huh? Yuan suddenly retrieved the Starry Abyss. I still haven't thanked you for giving me this treasure. It has been really useful to me ever since then. This treasure is more than enough to compensate for everything I have done for the city, as well as what I will do for it in the future. Of course, I hope nothing bad happens to this place ever again. Thank you, Taoist Yuan. After talking with each other for a little more, Yuan returned to his own room. Sometime later, Yuan stood up and said to her, Anyways, you should get ready if you aren't already. We'll be challenging the stairway to heaven in a few days. Chapter 652. It's been a while, Meishio. Feng Yuxiang greeted her with a calm smile on her face. Hello, Feng. How have you been? The same as usual. What about you? Anything new since our last meeting? A lot has happened since then. Meishio sighed. Want to talk to me about it while we go pick up the young master's other friend? Feng Yuxiang asked as she picked up Meishio with chi manifestation. Just a little. Meishio nodded. Meanwhile, news of what happened to the blood sect spread like wildfire throughout the entire lower heavens, and within a single day, nearly everybody has heard about it. Have you heard? Someone named Yuan has managed to destroy the blood sect. I have heard about it, but is it even possible to completely destroy an evil sect? Even if you killed a few hundred disciples from the blood sect, they won't be destroyed unless you exterminate all of their disciples. They're like cockroaches. That's the thing. He didn't just kill a few hundred disciples, he killed thousands of them. Of course, this includes their sect master and all of the high-ranking disciples that Lord Blood brought with him. I know it'll be hard for them to rebuild after this even if they're the blood sect. And they still lost to a single man? Heavens, how powerful is this Yuan person? And how come I haven't heard of him until today? I believe there was also a disciple with the same name in the Dragon Essence Temple. I heard about him. He's the one who carried their sect to first place in the mystic realm, right? Thus, Yuan would go on and tell them about his history with the Yu family and how they abandoned him when he became crippled, leaving them speechless. Chapter 653. I'm sorry for laughing, but I really cannot help it after listening to your story. How stupid can the Yu family be? Wang Ming laughed out loud. Abandoning their own son because he became a cripple? It's so ridiculous it's funny. The fact that they abandoned the one and only player Yuan without even being aware of it. Ahem. Li Jinxi suddenly cleared her throat, causing Wang Ming to stop laughing. She then turned to look at Yuan with a serious face. Yuan, do you want to get revenge on the Yu family? Our families can destroy them with ease after all. Revenge? It's fine. Why? Don't you feel angry? Any normal person would detest their family if they were abandoned. I never said I wasn't angry at them. In fact, my anger grows every time I am reminded of them. He spoke in a calm voice. Then why don't you want revenge? I want revenge, but I want to do it my own way, by myself. I understand. That's even better. Li Jinxi nodded with a smile. After breakfast, Yuan returned to his own room with Chu Liuxiang. I thought you didn't want revenge against your family for abandoning you, brother Yuan? Chu Liuxiang said with a cheeky smile on her face. Oh, things change. Yuan smiled back. Anyways, have you met Feng Feng yet? He asked a moment later. That makes sense, I guess. Chapter 654. A few hours later, Feng Yuxiang stopped moving above a city in the eastern continent. We have arrived, she said to the other two girls. I see you row. She's over there. Meishu pointed at the small figure standing outside the city gates. Of course, she was surrounded by young men, just like when Yuan first found her. Young fairy, why are you standing out here alone? Why don't you come with me and I will show you all around the city and some more? No, you should follow me. My father is the... Why you're floating? The people there were shocked when Yuro suddenly started levitating off the ground. She's not floating. She's flying. A spirit grandmaster. They then watched as Yuro flew towards Feng Yuxiang and the others in the sky. It's been a while, Yuro. I hope I didn't interrupt your fun down there. Feng Yuxiang said to her with a smile. You came just at the right time, Feng Feng. Then let's return to the young master's side, shall we? We're already behind schedule. To think Yuro had managed to hide this fact for so many years. It was truly a shock to Meishu. Wait, so you're telling me that you didn't always know about Brother Yuan's adoption? Chu Liuxiang finally spoke after comprehending the situation. Yuro shook her head. No. Actually, perhaps I knew, but forgot about it since Brother Yuan always treated me like a real sister and I was very young back then. Maybe I didn't want to believe it and tricked myself into thinking that he was my real brother. Even I don't know anymore. Chapter 655. Sorry for keeping this a secret from you too, Meishu? Yuro sighed a moment later. No, I should be the one apologizing. There have been many moments where I pondered about telling you. But seeing you so happy to be his little sister, I didn't want to ruin it for you or him by tearing apart your status as brother and sister. Meishu shook her head. I understand. After all, that's also why I didn't reveal the fact that I knew about it. I didn't want to ruin our relationship as siblings. Yuro smiled. She then turned to look at Chu Liuxiang and continued, Can you tell me about Brother Yuan's life in the orphanage? I have always been curious, but I was also too scared to ask about it since that would give everything away. Of course, it would be my pleasure. To Yu Rao's surprise, Chu Liuxiang didn't object to her request, as she was certain that Chu Liuxiang would rather keep everything a secret just to tease her. But in return you'll tell me about Brother Yuan's life in the Yu family. The good memories. I already know all of the bad ones after all. Chu Liuxiang added. And for the rest of the journey, Chu Liuxiang and Yuro would share their memories with Yuan to each other, quickly becoming friends. What a surprise. This left Meishu profoundly surprised as she did not expect the two of them would suddenly become friends. In fact, she had expected some sort of rivalry between them, especially since Yuro is very protective when it comes to Yuan being with other women. A few hours later, they arrived at Pang City, and Feng Yuxiang descended directly in front of the Luo family's manor. Welcome back, seniors. The guards bowed to them. You sound like an old man who's devoted all his time to work. Chu Liuxiang suddenly said. Well, I cannot deny that. Yuro shrugged. But that's not the only reason why I want to stay down here. Let me explain. Yuro continued. Chapter 656. The other reason why I don't want to ascend has connections to the first reason. Since I don't have time to play, my progression will barely move, so even if I ascend, I will only be a hindrance to you all. Do you understand? It's like sending a low-level player to a place filled with high-level monsters. I won't be able to do anything by myself if you leave my side even for a moment, brother. And I do not expect you to wait for me, as that would be a waste of time. Yuro sighed. But I can help you progress faster with treasures. You won't be a burden to me. Yuan said. Don't even bother trying to convince me, brother. I have already decided to stay down here. Furthermore, I won't be alone since I will have Xia Jingyi by my side. After a moment of silence, Yuan sighed. All right. Fine. I won't try to convince you anymore. However, just know that once I leave, it will be incredibly hard for us to meet in this world again since I cannot come down to the lower heavens whenever I please. It's not like we cannot see each other in the other world. Yu smiled. Anyways, I have to wake up early tomorrow for training, so I won't be able to stay here for much longer. Let's talk to each other until I have to leave, okay? Yuan nodded. I want to hear more about your faction. Of course. It's a really great place. Everyone there is very nice to each other, and it feels like ID suddenly gained a new family. Although training is hard at times, my cultivation has improved by leaps and bounds since I started training there. Yu proceeded to recall her last couple of weeks as a member of the Eternal Lotuses. She told Yuan her daily routines, her training schedules, and even some of Xia Jingyi's experiences there. It sounds like a great place. I should visit there one day. Yuan smiled. How about your faction, brother? You created one, right? Wang Ming casually shrugged. Are you kidding me? We just ate, so I am a little sleepy. If you want to fight, we can do it tomorrow. After saying that, he went into his room and locked it, leaving Wang Bingbing speechless. Chapter 657. After returning to his room, Yuan went to his closet and retrieved a basket of medicine. Are those the medicine you'd acquired from the Jaded Garden? Do you plan on tempering your body tonight? Chu Liuxiang asked him when she saw the basket. Yes. Do you want to join me? Yuan asked her. Is that even a question? Of course I want to join you. Chu Liuxiang wasted no time removing her clothes, stripping herself naked before Yuan could even prepare the bath. I haven't even prepared the bath. You should put your clothes back on unless you want to catch a cold. Yuan said to her. Chu Liuxiang chuckled. I haven't caught a cold ever since I became a cultivator. I don't think cultivators can even catch colds. Anyways, I already took my clothes off. I will just wait under the blankets until you're done. You can join me at any time. Chu Liuxiang said as she entered the bed. Yuan couldn't help but smile at Chu Luxiang's behavior that reminded him of Elder Shan from the Dragon Essence Temple, and they both give off similar vibes. Half an hour later, once the bathtub was prepared, Yuan entered the green water with Chu Liuxiang. Have you ever tempered your body before? Yuan asked her. I have, she calmly replied. Really? Where does the Chu family obtain their medicine? Chapter 658. How do you like the scenery? Does it make your heart pound with excitement? The handsome man suddenly asked him without looking away from the red sky. Yuan coldly snorted. Why are you showing up now? You didn't show up when I asked you to fight the blood sect. The handsome man turned to look at him with red eyes and showed a grim smile. Are you still angry that I killed those ants for you? You must have wanted to kill them yourself, but you didn't have the courage, so I had to give you a slight push. Yuan frowned at his words. Angry? Of course I am angry. However, it's not because you killed those people. I am angry because you possessed my body without my permission. First it was the divine paragon, now it's you. Yuan expressed his concerns regarding their possession. And to his surprise, the handsome man actually began laughing. Possessed? You think we possessed you? That is incorrect. We're not ghosts. Then how do you explain what happened? It's simple. You awakened your memories and began acting as though you were that person. You were the one who called upon us, not the other way around. The divine paragon took over your body because you wanted to defeat the demon. I took over your body because you wanted to kill those ants. It's as simple as that. And no way, it's the truth. We may have lived different lives, but in the end we're all the same person. Don't be angry at me, us. It just means you're angry at yourself. After a moment of silence, Yuan spoke in a questioning tone. And who are you supposed to be? The handsome man suddenly stood up and turned to face him. Follow me, brother Yuan. Xiao Hua will take you there, she said with an eager smile. Chapter 659. Where the fuck is that bitch Minli? We have been waiting here for almost a week. She should be here by now. Gu Tao shouted in an angry voice when he lost his patience. Do you think we were fooled by the Min family? He then asked his father, who was sitting beside him inside the carriage. That's not possible. He wouldn't lie about something like this. It would only damage his family's reputation, and you know how much we value our face. Furthermore, this is Minli that we're talking about. They wouldn't sacrifice their family's reputation for her. Why do you think they sold her to us in the first place? That makes sense. However, that doesn't change the fact that Min Li isn't here. We came here immediately after leaving the Min family, so there's no way that Wed missed her. Gu Tao said. That's also not possible. I had spoken to the people here. None of them have seen Min Li, and she's one eye-catching girl. Then how long are we going to wait? We cannot stay here forever, not to mention that wedding that is supposed to be in 3 days. Gu Tao sighed out loud. There's nothing we can do but wait. It was at this moment the Gu family noticed a group of individuals approaching their direction, and all but one of them were kingdom-toppling beauties. However, Gu Tao only had one person in his eyes, a young lady with a familiar face. Wow, so that is the stairway to heaven, huh? It's much grander than I'd anticipated. Yuan mumbled in awe as he gazed upon the massive staircase that hovered in the air not far in the distance. There were only a total of 9 steps on this staircase, but it was so massive that it filled the sky and seemed like it was created for giants, and there was a beautiful golden door at the end of the 9th step. I have never seen such a big staircase before. It's almost as though it was created for giants. Chu Liuxiang mumbled in a dazed voice. Speaking of giants, do they exist in the cultivation world? Yuan asked. Chapter 660. A Spirit Grandmaster. She's a Spirit Grandmaster. The middle-aged man cried inwardly, shocked by Feng Yuxiang's cultivation base. If you dare move, I will kill you. Feng Yuxiang said to them with an overbearing aura around her. However, Gu Tao's father was also a Spirit Grandmaster, so he didn't immediately back down. Who are you? He asked her with a slight frown. Feng Yuxiang. What? Madame Feng from the Golden Phoenix Bazaar? Although he has never personally gone to her store before, his Gu family has purchased many treasures from her place before. Impossible. What are you doing in this place? My business is none of your business. However, your business on the other hand. Feng Yuxiang narrowed her eyes. How dare you treat my young master in such a manner? Courting death. Feng Yuxiang began approaching Gu Tao while emitting strong killing intent. Father, help me. Kill this bitch for me. Gu Tao immediately hid behind his father's back. Although he could sense Feng Yuxiang's threatening aura, he doesn't actually know Feng Yuxiang's identity, nor was he aware of her cultivation base. There is nothing to talk about. You lost that chance when you threatened to take Min Li away by force. Patriarch Gu gritted his teeth in anger, but he eventually gave up and said, Fine. I will give them to you. Chapter 661. Here are my spatial rings and storage pouches. Let my son go now. Patriarch Gu gritted his teeth and handed over his treasures to Yuan. Meanwhile, Feng Yuxiang also collected Gu Tao's spatial rings and storage pouches. Here you go, senior fairy. Gu Tao handed all of his possession to Feng Yuxiang without any hesitation. In his mind, nothing in this world was more valuable than his cultivation that took years of effort to build. After taking his treasures, Feng Yuxiang returned to Yuan's side and gave them to him. Thank you, Feng Feng. So can we leave now? Patriarch Gu asked him, seemingly in a hurry to leave. Yes, you can. However, before Yuan could finish his sentence, Xiaohua stepped forward and said, Wait. What's the matter? Yuan looked at her. She pointed at Patriarch Gu and spoke in a calm voice. He still has a spatial ring hidden on his body. Patriarch Gu's entire body trembled when he heard Xiaohua's claims. Chapter 662. We have arrived at the stairway to heaven. Feng Yuxiang said as they approached the massive staircase not far away from them. It's quite empty here. Yuan had expected there to be more people in this place for some reason, but that didn't seem to be the case as there were only a dozen people there, including an old man sitting behind a desk right beside the staircase. Young master, speak with that old man whenever you're ready to challenge the stairway to heaven. I will be cheering for you from inside your body since I don't need to participate in the trials. Feng Yuxiang said to him before transforming into a glowing orb and entering his body. Xiaohua is confident that Brother Yuan will succeed. Xiaohua also entered his body a moment later. Only Lan Yingying remained as she didn't come from the upper heavens like the other two. Where did they go? Chu Liuxiang asked in a baffled voice, as this was her first time witnessing such a thing. They're resting inside my body right now, Yuan said. What? How does that even work? Can I enter your body too? She then asked. They can do that because they are my servants. Yuan smiled. Anyways, let's go speak with that old man. The old man sitting behind the desk looked at them and said, Are you going to challenge the stairway to heaven? I am. Yuan nodded. First time? Yes. Yuan, I will help them climb the staircase. You need to focus on yourself. Lan Yingying said to him. Okay. Thank you. After putting down Meishio and Chu Liuxiang, Yuan proceeded to make his way towards the second step that was about 200 meters away. Chapter 663. I'll look at that. There's more than one person climbing the stairway right now. What? Is that even possible? I thought only one person could go at a time. It's only allowed because one of them is assisting them through the stairway to heaven, most likely that young man in the front. Wait. That's actually a thing? Since when? I have spectated this place for many years, but I have never seen such a thing before. That's because nobody does it. One can help 9 other individuals climb the stairway to heaven, but the person doing the climbing will have the burden of the other 9, increasing the difficulty of their climb significantly. Heavens! Climbing alone is already hard enough, yet that person is willing to take 4 other people with him. I don't blame him. Look at the people he's helping. All of them are breathtaking beauties that can topple kingdoms with a mere smile. I wouldn't leave them behind either. If you had to choose between those beauties or ascending, and you can only pick one, which would you pick? The beauties, of course. I'd be willing to stay down here forever just for one of them, much less 4. While the spectators focused on Meishio and the others, Yuan reached the second step with barely any effort made. However, the moment he stepped onto the second step, he felt the pressure bearing down his body suddenly double in strength. Even though it still wasn't enough to make him sweat, he was worried about the later steps. About a minute later, he reached the third step and once again the pressure on him doubled in strength. It's still endurable. Yuan mumbled to himself as he quickly made his way towards the fourth step. However, the moment he stepped on the fourth step, Yuan felt the pressure on him triple in strength. Master? Is that really you? The voice responded, and Yuan could see a faint light suddenly appear in the distance. Chapter 664. Yuan swallowed nervously as he watched the faint light gradually approach his direction. Master, is it really you? The childish voice continued to resound in the darkness. I think you're mistaking me for someone else. This is my first time in this place. Yuan said. No. Once the light was right in front of him, it started transforming until it took the shape of a human with a childlike figure. A few moments later, a cute little girl with long, glistening black hair that dragged on the floor stood before him. She stared at him intensely with her sharp golden eyes and continued to speak. While you have a different appearance, your soul is the same. You are definitely my master. I will never mistake my master for someone else. You don't remember me, master? She asked him after a moment of silence. Yuan narrowed his eyes at this little girl and sighed inwardly. She's definitely talking about one of my past lives, right? After another moment of silence, Yuan asked, Who or what are you? Tian'er is the guardian of Stairway to Heaven. Guardian? Like its master? No, Tian'er is merely a guardian. I protect this place and uphold its integrity. Master. You are the real master of the Stairway to Heaven. You really don't remember? What? I am the master of this place? Yuan was left baffled by this information. Tian'er's voice resounded a moment later. Welcome to the first trial in the Stairway to Heaven, Master. Chapter 665. After entering the Stairway to Heaven, Meishio and the others found themselves transported to this empty room that somehow had a small pond resting in the center. Where are we? Where's Yuan? Chu Liuxiang asked in a slightly panicked manner. Calm down, we're currently in the spectators area. Feng Yuxiang said. Since we're not participating in the trial, we were transported somewhere where we cannot disturb the young master. I see. Meishio and Minli looked around with a bewildered face as they had never seen such scenery before. Although they were inside a room, the walls were almost transparent, and the background was a starry sky with tiny lights flickering in the distance. The floor seemed to be made of a smooth material, almost like jade, and there was a pond in the middle of the room. Xiaohua didn't say anything and approached the pond in the center of the room before sitting beside it and staring at it. Feng Yuxiang also did the same thing. Come. We'll be able to see the young master here. Everyone there sat around this pond a moment later, silently staring at the clear liquid. A few minutes later, they could see an image appearing on the surface of the water. "Look, it's Yuan," Chu Liuxiang exclaimed when she realized it was Yuan, and he just entered this arena. "Looks like he's about to start his first trial." Feng Yuxiang smiled. Meanwhile, somewhere in the stairway to heaven, Yuan was waiting for his first trial to begin. After waiting around for a few moments, he noticed the scenery changing from the void to a bustling city where people could be seen walking around. Chapter 666. After spending an hour recovering his spiritual energy, Yuan was prepared to enter the pagoda that had over 100 floors. Will I be able to reach the peak and defeat the city lord in less than 3 hours? He wondered to himself as he opened the door and entered the pagoda. Inside of the pagoda wasn't as big as Yuan expected, but there was more than enough space for 2 cultivators to fight without restrictions. Yuan looked around the first floor that appeared to be a dojo, and it reminded him of another place had challenged before, the carp leaping over Dragon's Gate Tower within the Dragon Essence Temple. However, instead of fighting magical beasts, humans were his opponents this time. "Who are you? And what are you doing in my lord's pagoda?" A figure suddenly appeared before Yuan without him noticing until this person spoke. Yuan looked at the middle-aged man and said, "I am here to speak with your lord." "Do you have an appointment?" the middle-aged man asked. "I do not." "Then you may scram out of here." "Unfortunately, that's not possible either." "Is that so?" The middle-aged man retrieved his weapon that was a spear the next moment and pointed it at Yuan. "Then you can stay here forever." Yuan didn't say anything and retrieved the Empyrean Overlord. Mastery Level 1. Description: an extremely fast and deadly technique that can kill 1,000 people without making the slightest sound. Created by the famous cultivator known as Vanishing Ghost, who was once regarded as the 9 heavens' deadliest assassin. Chapter 667. After killing the man, Yuan proceeded to the next floor. His sword technique is really powerful, and it doesn't consume as much spiritual energy as the heaven-splitting sword strike. Yuan thought to himself as he climbed the staircase. Upon reaching the second floor, Yuan encountered another man with the cultivation of a spirit lord. "Who are you? What happened to the guard downstairs?" the man asked him with an unfriendly look. Yuan didn't bother responding to the man and withdrew his sword, as he was already expecting to fight anyone that gets in his way. A mere spirit grandmaster." The man didn't say anything else and withdrew his weapon. Their weapons collided a moment later. Yuan decided to try using the Starry Abyss again just to make sure it still works. However, just like the man downstairs, this one could also somehow track his invisible flying dagger. Just how are they tracking my Starry Abyss? It's invisible and its presence should be concealed. How else can they track it? A few minutes later, Yuan managed to defeat the man without using the soundless blade technique. And for the next hour he would repeat the same thing. However, his streak was stopped by an unexpected situation. When he arrived on the 9th floor, the guard there didn't attack him. "The Lord wishes to meet you. You may go up." Yuan was shocked when he saw the city lord's face that looked exactly like the handsome man in his dream. The only reason he didn't realize it until now was simply because the city lord had changed his voice to something unrecognizable. "Since you're here, it must mean that another reincarnation has occurred. How many times have you reincarnated by now? Have you achieved the goal yet?" the handsome man asked him with a profound smile. Chapter 668. After snapping out of his daze from the handsome man's question, Yuan laughed a little before speaking. "What a coincidence. I also have a similar question. What the heck is up with all of this reincarnation stuff? Tell me everything you know about it. How else am I supposed to achieve this goal you speak of when I don't even remember it?" The handsome man silently stared at Yuan for a good moment. "I see. So you don't remember anything yet. That's fine. It's not the first time that you have forgotten about your past, but you will eventually remember everything. However, don't expect me to spoon-feed you everything just because we belong to the same soul. If you want to remember your memories, you will have to defeat me. Why else would I force myself to do the trials in this place?" "Good. I have always wanted to give you a good beating but never got the chance since you're always much stronger than me in my dreams," Yuan said. The two of them continued fighting again shortly after. Meanwhile, in the spectators' room. "What happened? Why did it stop working?" Chu Liuxiang exclaimed when the water suddenly stopped reflecting Yuan and the city lord right when the city lord was about to remove his mask. Unfortunately, nobody there could answer her question. I don't know what happened, but we can only wait until it returns. Feng Yuxiang said. Back in the pagoda, Yuan and the handsome man fought each other so viciously that they'd collapsed some of the floors there. You're still lacking. When I was at your level, spirit kings were no match for me. However, that shouldn't be possible. You should be far stronger than me since you're reincarnated. The handsome man spoke as he fought. After pondering for a moment, he continued, perhaps you didn't fully awaken your bloodline? Or maybe you don't know how to use it. You don't know anything, do you? The handsome man suddenly flicked his finger, sending the orb of light straight into Yuan's forehead, and Yuan's vision blackened the next moment. Chapter 669. Where am I? Yuan slowly opened his eyes to the sound of water splashing beside him. He looked around once his eyes adjusted to the bright sunlight, and to his surprise, there was a large river beside him. What the? How did I get here? I was just at the pagoda. Yuan stood up a moment later, but he immediately noticed something different about his body. My cultivation base is gone. He exclaimed in a shocked voice. Suddenly, another voice resounded, responding to his words. Are you still dreaming, Tianyang? You're not even a cultivator yet, how can you possibly have a cultivation base? Yuan turned to the sound of the voice to see a pretty young girl sitting underneath a tree with a scroll in her hands. Meng Lily? Yuan subconsciously muttered her name even though he had never met her before. Wait, did she just call me Tianyang? So I am seeing his memories right now? Now that he had an idea of his situation, Yuan decided to play along. However, it was not as though he could actually control his body freely. Yuan suddenly began walking towards this young lady named Meng Lily. In the meantime, you can continue climbing the stairway to heaven to regain even more of your memories. You still have a few more trials ahead of you after all. Chapter 670. Don't screw with me. You're just wasting time. Why can't you tell me what really matters? I don't care about the other memories. Yuan frowned at the handsome man's words. Now that wouldn't be fun at all, would it? Furthermore, who tells a story that starts from the middle, the most exciting part? That makes no sense and will only take away the excitement. The handsome man casually shrugged. Anyways, I won't keep you here any longer. Have fun with the rest of the trial. The handsome man disappeared the next moment, and the scenery began to disappear shortly after. In just a few breaths of time, Yuan returned back to the arena with a starry background. Congratulations on passing your first trial, master. Tianer's voice resounded. Yuan looked up into the darkness and asked, how many more trials do I need to complete before I arrive at the next realm? After a moment of silence, Tianer said, I cannot answer that question, master, as it's different for everyone. Some require 4 trials while some only require 1 trial to ascend. What? How is that even fair? And how are the trials decided? They are decided by the participant's talent, destiny, and if they are helping others ascend. The more talented you are, the more difficult the trials will become. Destiny? You're telling me that the stairway to heaven can tell someone's destiny? That is correct. Then can you tell me my destiny? That is not how this works, master. He's an array master. Someone there exclaimed after realizing what had blocked the attack. Chapter 671. An array master? Feng Feng mentioned them not long ago. Yuan looked at the peak spirit lord with an interested gaze. Although it was faint, he could see a semi-transparent barrier around the peak spirit lord, and if he looked at the barrier with his divine sense, he would be able to see the symbols that supported the barrier together. Those symbols contain most of the spiritual energy. Is that the barrier's true form? A bunch of symbols combined together? He thought to himself. You have 2 more attacks. If you can crack my array, I will consider you hired. The peak spirit lord said to the recruit. However, even after using his last 2 chances, the recruit had failed to make even the slightest crack on the barrier. Next, the middle-aged man said. The next recruit stepped forward and tried to crack the array created by the peak spirit lord, but to no avail. After going through 5 people without any success, they finally managed to find someone who could crack the array on his 3rd strike, but the crack was very minuscule and less than an inch long. The peak spirit lord silently stared at the crack for a moment before speaking. Fail. What? But I managed to crack your array. The recruit exclaimed, unwilling to accept the results. So what if you barely managed to crack it? It's still not convincing enough. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being weak. Meanwhile, a small commotion broke out somewhere in the line. Can't you read? Only spirit lords and above can qualify to be their bodyguard. You, who is a mere spirit grandmaster, should get out of the line and stop wasting our time. Hell, you're not even a peak spirit grandmaster. You can call me Yuan. Then Yuan, you can wait inside the restaurant for now. We're going to recruit a couple more bodyguards before we leave. You can order whatever you want in the meantime. The Huang family will pay for everything, said Dong Zhou. Chapter 672. Yuan proceeded to make his way into the restaurant after being accepted as a bodyguard for the Huang family. Please wait a second, Yuan. A soothing voice suddenly called out to him just as he was able to enter the restaurant. He halted his movements and turned around to see a pretty young lady walking out of the carriage. Yuan's eyes widened with surprise when he saw this young lady. Lulu? What are you doing here? Yuan subconsciously blurted out loud, as this young lady greatly resembled Chu Liuxiang. From her brown hair to hazel eyes, it was almost as though Chu Liuxiang herself was there. However, after closer inspection, although very minor, there were some differences. Lulu? The young lady raised her eyebrows. Sorry, I mistook you for someone else. You look very similar to one of my friends, he corrected himself. The young lady chuckled at his words and said, My name is Huang Shaoli. If you don't mind, may I accompany you in the restaurant? I'm feeling a little hungry too. Yuan looked at the middle-aged man standing beside Huang Shaoli. Entertaining my family is also part of your job as a bodyguard, he said. Once outside, Huang Shaoli returned to the carriage while Yuan gathered with the other bodyguards. Chapter 673. My name is Huang Qin, head of the Huang family. Inside the carriage is my wife, son, and daughter. Your mission is simple, to make sure no harm comes into their way until we arrive at our destination, the Giant's Continent. It's about 100,000 miles from here to the Giant's Continent, but with the ship we're riding, it will only take a little over a week to get there, and as mentioned, you will receive 10 million gold coins for your service. We will give you 1 million gold in advance and the rest once we arrive at our destination. Of course, you can get more than 10 million gold in total with bonuses depending on your performances. If any of you die while protecting my family, I will make sure to pass your money to your family for you. Do any of you have any questions? None of the guards said anything. Good, then we'll make our departure in an hour. We'll be waiting for you at dock number 9. If you're all ready before then, we can leave early. Huang Qin entered the carriage afterward and left the scene without waiting for them. And since Yuan had nothing else to do, he immediately followed them to the docks. There were 5 other bodyguards besides Yuan that had passed the test, 4 men and 1 woman, and they were all between the 7th level and 8th level Spirit Lord. An hour later, everyone gathered at dock number 9. The carriage was nowhere to be seen and the Huang family was revealed in full. Welcome to the Immortal Monastery, where we make immortals out of mortals like you. However, you will not become disciples immediately. All of you will start out as servants, and if you can learn our cultivation technique that we provide to you in less than 4 years, you will be promoted to being an outer court disciple. The old man that picked them up from their village said as they approached the mountain range. Chapter 674. Once they entered the sect, the cultivator left them in a secluded area before flying away without saying another word. While Yuan and the others looked around, a chubby old man approached them and said, Welcome to the bamboo garden. This is where you will all be spending your next 4 years. While you are here, you are required to do labor for the sect, such as cutting wood and gathering water. Of course, if you manage to learn the cultivation technique before then, you'll get to leave earlier. Your schedule will be very simple. There will be a quota for each of you every week that must be completed, or you will be punished. I don't care when you finish it. You can finish it on the first day of the week or even the last day of the week. As long as you meet your quota, you can spend the rest of your time cultivating. Any questions? Oh, you can call me Senior Co. Good. Follow me, I will show you the important facilities before I take you all to receive your uniforms and cultivation technique. Yuan and the others began following this fat old man through the bamboo garden. This area right here is the cafeteria. It will only be open 2 times a day for breakfast and dinner. If you fail to complete your quota, you will lose access to the cafeteria until you finish it. This is the bamboo stream. You can wash your clothes here. If you go a little further down, you can even catch fishes. Do not gather your water here for your quotas. There is a separate area for that. That building over there is the training hall. You can go there to train your body, but there won't be any instructors to give you guidance. That is a privilege only for official disciples. This entire area is the bamboo field. It's where you'll gather most of your supplies when you receive a quota that requires you to cut down bamboo. Furthermore, the closer we get to the giant's continent, the more dangerous the sea creatures become, especially the leviathans. Let's pray to the heavens that we don't encounter those monsters. They're known as the Lord of the Seas, and meeting even a single one of them could mean disaster if not certain death for us. Chapter 675. The ship stopped shaking shortly after the voice disappeared. Looks like they have managed to deal with the sea demon, Qin Kai said before going back to his cultivation. Yuan also closed his eyes and returned to looking through his memories. A few weeks have passed since he became a servant of the Immortal Monastery, yet he hasn't been able to learn the cultivation technique, which is a far cry from Yuan's ability to learn even heaven-ranked techniques within minutes. Becoming a cultivator is much more tedious than I'd anticipated. I have read through the manual over 1,000 times by now, and I can even recall every single word in the manual backwards with my eyes closed, yet I still cannot sense any spiritual energy. Yuan placed the scroll down and tried to sense the spiritual energy in the air again, but to no avail. After failing to sense spiritual energy for half of the day, Yuan decided to go outside to do his quota, which required him to cut down 200 bamboo in a week. How are you feeling, Tianyang? Still can't sense spiritual energy? Someone called out to him as he was working. Yuan turned around to see a skinny young man who looked incredibly fragile approaching him from behind. After saying his goodbyes to Ning Zixuan and the place, Yuan left the bamboo garden and was taken to the outer court by the same person who brought him to this sect, unaware of the countless challenges that were waiting for him there. Chapter 676. Boom. The ship suddenly began shaking violently for a second time, snapping Yuan out of his daze. Wow, this one is quite powerful. Did we encounter a powerful sea demon already? We've only been out in the sea for half a day. Qin Kai muttered in a low voice. The shaking lasted a few more moments more than the previous time. Half a day? Yuan suddenly realized something, and he tilted his head to look up into the ceiling of the ship. Meishio Lulu, I won't be logging off until I finish this trial. Please take care of everything until I am done. He spoke to them in the spectators' room. Who are you talking to? Qin Kai also looked at the ceiling with raised eyebrows. Oh, I was just talking to myself. What a weirdo. Qin Kai chuckled. Meanwhile, in the spectators' room, Meishio said to Chu Liuxiang, I am going to log off. What about you? I will stay here and continue watching Yuan in case anything happens. Mixia's eyebrows twitched slightly when she realized something. She's no longer addressing him as Brother Yuan. Did something happen between them? Okay, then I will check up on you once in a while. Meishio logged off shortly after to notify the other members that Yuan will be busy for a week. He can only imagine what the second trial has in store for him. Chapter 677. On the third day of their journey to the giant's continent, Huang Shaoli came out of her room and pointed at Yuan, who was casually sitting in front of the door, and said to him, I am going to look around the ship, and you'll be coming with me, Yuan. What? Yuan was dumbfounded by her request. You encountered robbers just yesterday and you already want to leave your room? That's a little dangerous if I have to be honest, he said to her. Furthermore, he didn't want to be separated from the rest of the family. What if they're attacked when he's away and dies? That would mean the end of the trial for him. I will be fine. After all, you will be there to protect me if anything were to happen, right? Huang Shaoli said with a smile on her face. What about the rest of your family? I have to protect them as well. Have you already forgotten that we have other bodyguards beside you? They will take your spot. Or are you making this difficult because you don't want to be with me? Do you find me bothersome? That's not it. Yuan sighed. Then it's decided. You're coming with me to explore the ship. Yuan gave up and nodded his head, but we still need another bodyguard. Qin Kai raised his hand and said, I can. However, he was quickly interrupted by Huang Shaoli. I have already spoken to my father. I can take just one bodyguard with me. You can go confirm with him if you'd like. That won't be necessary. We trust your words, Qin Kai said. He then turned to look at Yuan and said, Go ahead and protect the young lady. I will call one of the other guards to take your place until you return. After pondering for a moment, Yuan nodded, let's do it. Chapter 678. Alright, let's start with the array I just used on you. Huang Shaoli retrieved a manual and showed it to him. Body Shielding Array. Yuan read the title of the manual. How does one learn arrays? Is it any different from learning cultivation techniques? He then asked. Well, they're quite similar in some ways, but they are also very different. You will understand it once we begin. Anyways, let's start. First and foremost, you must learn how to create symbols with your hands. Allow me to demonstrate it. Huang Shaoli then raised her hand and began writing in the air with her index finger. There was a warm-looking light on the tip of her fingers, and everywhere it went, it would draw a line in the air, eventually creating a symbol that floated in the air. I don't expect you to draw a symbol on your first try, so you should just try drawing lines in the air like this. She then waved her finger around, creating a long, glowing line in the air. In order to do this, you must collect your spiritual energy on your fingertip and imagine drawing in the air. Trust me, it's actually much harder than it sounds. Just mastering this technique alone requires months of practice. Okay, let me try. Yuan closed his eyes and gathered some of his spiritual energy onto his fingertip. So that's how an array master fights, huh? Yuan mumbled as he watched their battle from afar. Chapter 679. There are many ways an array master can fight. They can support the others like Dong Zhou is doing right now, or they can fight in the front line by themselves. It all depends on what they prefer and how confident they are in their own arrays. Some array masters may prefer supporting because they are not confident in their ability to fight, but that is not to say they don't have the capabilities to do so. Huang Shaoli explained to him. Bang! The ship shook again when one of the tentacles struck the barrier protecting the ship. I didn't notice the formation until you told me. How can you tell there's one? Yuan then asked. Formations can be spotted quite easily if you know what you're looking for. Unless the formation is concealed with another formation, you should be able to see it with your divine sense. With my divine sense. Yuan immediately tried looking with his divine sense, and sure enough, there was a massive barrier around the ship that seems to be made of symbols, tens of thousands of symbols that connect with each other. You probably think there's only a few thousand symbols in this formation, right? Look at the symbols individually again. Each of these symbols are actually combinations of smaller symbols, so there are millions if not billions of symbols that make up this formation. Heavens! How long would it take to create this formation? Yuan asked after a moment of silence. It really depends on the complexity of the formation and the ability of those formation experts that worked on it. A formation of this size and complexity probably took years if not decades of efforts from hundreds of formation experts to complete. That long? Yuan was shocked. Of course. Formations often require millions of symbols, and a single mistake can cause the whole formation to crumble. Unlike arrays that don't need as much attention since they require much fewer symbols, so even if you make a mistake you can quickly fix it. Honestly, whenever the young master does something new, it feels more like he already has experience doing them but just forgot about it. I know that sounds impossible, but it's how it feels sometimes. Feng Yuxiang shrugged. After a moment of silence, Xiao Hua mumbled in a low voice, if reincarnation is real, that won't sound as impossible. Chapter 680. Reincarnation. Do you believe the young master is the reincarnation of a powerful immortal in the past? Do you even believe in the concept of reincarnation at all? Feng Yuxiang looked at Xiao Hua with raised eyebrows. Xiao Hua didn't appear to be the type to believe in these kinds of things. After a moment of silence, Xiao Hua spoke. Although Xiao Hua doesn't necessarily believe in reincarnation, her family believes in it. Your family? I've been wondering for a while now, but what kind of family do you have? As Feng Yuxiang expected, Xiao Hua refused to say anything about her family. Whatever. Not that I really care. Anyways, if the young master is really the reincarnation of a powerful expert, I believe it. After all, I am a phoenix. I symbolize reincarnation itself. Chu Liuxiang listened to their conversation with raised eyebrows. Although she doesn't believe in reincarnation, she found the topic to be quite interesting. This was also the case for Min Li. Let's say Yuan is the reincarnation of someone else. Is there a way to test that? Chu Liuxiang suddenly asked. There are many mythical treasures in the world of cultivation, right? Surely, there must be a treasure that can tell whether someone is reincarnated or not. Feng Yuxiang pondered for a moment before speaking. Actually, there's one. However, it's only a legend. Yuan closed his eyes and released a deep sigh. Flying or not, I will not let it stop us from reaching the giant's continent. Chapter 681. The Huang family gathered Yuan and the other bodyguards shortly after the announcement regarding the flying Leviathan. As you should all know by now, there is a flying Leviathan heading our way. This is a life-or-death situation for everyone on the ship, so we'll need to give it our all to defeat the flying Leviathan together. Huang Qin said to them. Everyone there nodded their heads with serious expressions on their faces. Anyways, let's all head to the deck and see what the captain of this ship has to say to us. Wait. Yuan suddenly stopped them. What's the matter? I need to prepare myself for the flying Leviathan, so if you don't mind, I will stay behind. Yuan said to them. Huang Qin nodded. You'll have 2 hours to prepare until the flying Leviathan arrives. Do your best. Father, I will stay here with him. Huang Shaoli suddenly said. Huang Qin raised his eyebrows and pondered for a moment before looking at Yuan. Do you mind? Although he wasn't sure why his daughter wanted to stay here with Yuan, he didn't object to it either. I don't mind. Yuan shook his head. Everyone but Yuan and Huang Shaoli gathered at the deck of the ship shortly after. Do you mind if I use your room? Yuan asked Huang Shaoli when they were alone. No, go ahead. I was going to ask you to come with me anyway. Are you trying to go somewhere? Chapter 682. Did you just say demon core? Min Li snapped her head to look at Lan Yingying with a shocked face. Demons should be extinct, so demon cores should no longer exist. However, if some of them have managed to survive this long, then it would be an incredibly valuable, even priceless treasure. However, that wasn't even the most shocking part. Why would Yuan consume something like that? Although she doesn't know the difference between demon cores and monster cores, they should function the same way, meaning it would be reckless if not suicidal to swallow them. Wait, are people allowed to use treasures while they are challenging the stairway to heaven? Isn't that cheating? Chu Liuxiang had a different question in mind. Feng Yuxiang shook her head and said, as far as I'm aware, it's not against the rules, or the young master would have failed already. I guess it's allowed because the stairway to heaven didn't take into consideration that someone might be able to consume treasures like the young master. It was at this moment that Meishio logged into the game. Did something happen? She asked them when she saw their faces. Chu Liuxiang proceeded to explain to her the situation. Meanwhile, Yuan had just reached the 9th level of Spirit Grandmaster and was only a single level away from becoming a Spirit Lord. Heavens! Huang Shaoli was sitting on the floor because her legs had given up on her after she witnessed Yuan's heaven-defying talents. After stopping at the peak of Spirit Grandmaster for a few minutes, Yuan suddenly took a deep breath, and when he released it, a cloud of glistening mist would come out of his mouth, almost like he was smoking. Whoosh! A sudden gust appeared in the room despite the windows being closed. Plus? Stats. Chapter 683. Please? Yuan. You don't have to do this alone. Huang Shaoli banged on the barrier with her fists. However, Yuan merely shook his head at her before flying off the ship and towards the flying Leviathan's aura with the other cultivators, leaving pretty much just the Huang family and their bodyguards on board. Of course, the mortals and those that cannot fight also remained on the ship while everyone else went to greet the flying Leviathan far away from the ship so their fight won't affect the ship and those on board. After Yuan left, Huang Shaoli immediately began trying to destroy the array created by Yuan, but to her absolute shock, she was unable to find any weaknesses in the array, making it incredibly difficult to break. How is he already this proficient with arrays? He only learned the basics a few days ago. I have studied arrays under my father for over 20 years, yet I cannot defeat an array created by a complete newbie that learned arrays just a few days ago. Impossible. Father. Why are you just standing there? Hurry up and break this array so that we can help him. Huang Shaoli turned to her father for help, as she was confident that he had the ability to break the array. However, Huang Qin remained standing there without moving a muscle, his gaze silently staring in the direction that Yuan went. He closed his eyes and sighed. The young man has already made his decision. I cannot go against it. What? That's nonsense. He's going to die if we leave him alone. I'm sure he's already prepared himself for that. Let's not disrespect his resolution. He then looked at the array surrounding them and smiled. I didn't expect that he would also be an array master. He's very good at it too. Perhaps even better than you, Shaoli. He must have trained very hard for many years to achieve this result. The cultivators there called out to Yuan, who immediately placed his sword in front of him to block it, as the ball of water was too large for him to dodge properly. Chapter 684. Fuck. He's a goner. The cultivators there immediately thought Yuan had died from that attack and returned to fighting the flying Leviathan without checking his condition. After all, there was no way that a low-level spirit lord like him could survive a low-level spirit emperor's attack head-on and survive. After flying for almost 3 miles from the impact, Yuan finally managed to stop himself. Whoa! He released a sigh of relief when he realized that he was still alive. In fact, besides feeling a little numb in his arms, he didn't really feel any pain from the attack just now. With the invisible dragon cloak that doubles my defenses alongside my defensive arrays, I can survive even a spirit emperor's attack as long as I don't tank it with my bare body. Furthermore, I can injure the flying Leviathan with my sword aura. I can do it. I can defeat this flying Leviathan. A bright smile appeared on Yuan's face when he realized that he could win this fight, and he immediately began flying back to the battlefield. However, he stopped moving when he suddenly thought of something. Wait a moment. The flying Leviathan should be occupied and distracted by the other cultivators right now. I can probably use this chance to deal some serious damage to the flying Leviathan. Unfortunately, he was distracted by a powerful pressure before he could come up with a plan. What the? A massive fish suddenly leaped out of the water and at Yuan with its mouth wide open. He quickly reacted by controlling the starry abyss, boring a hole in the fish before it could reach him. I was so distracted by the flying Leviathan that I forgot other sea demons exist in this water. He sighed. However, shortly after Yuan killed the sea demon, another random sea demon leaped out of the water to attack him. Just how many sea demons are there? He decided to use his divine sense to look under the water, but he immediately regretted that action. Chapter 685. After killing the flying Leviathan, Yuan returned to the ship, but it was completely silent upon his arrival. There was no celebration and everybody there merely stared at him with dazed looks. Some of them even had a hint of fear within their gaze. In their eyes, someone who could defeat the flying Leviathan that they find terrifying is obviously even more terrifying, and their minds could not help but transfer their fear for the flying Leviathan to Yuan. Thank you for letting me protect you all. Yuan removed the array that confined the Huang family and the bodyguards. He knew very well that Huang Qin could have broken the array very easily, but Huang Qin didn't do that and instead allowed him to protect them. Huang Qin casually snorted, "You're not done protecting us just yet. We still have to arrive at the giant's continent." Huang Shaoli suddenly stepped forward and swung her arm, giving Yuan a loud and crisp slap on the face. "I can't believe you left me behind like that." However, before Yuan could even react, she opened her arms and gave him a tight embrace. "I'm a little tired, so I will return to the room now," she then said. Yuan nodded. "I will protect you while you rest." Everyone there eventually returned to their rooms with nobody really leaving their rooms afterward. Sea demons still attacked the ship, but that wasn't a problem for the ship since most of the guards had survived the flying Leviathan's attack, allowing them to continue protecting the ship. Yuan's immediate response was to dodge this falling temple, but then he recalled the people below him and the trial. It was at this moment that he realized the true nature of this trial. If I dodge this falling temple, the people below me will die and I will fail the trial. He cried inwardly. Chapter 686. After realizing what he has to do, Yuan quickly retrieves the Empyrean Overlord before releasing the heaven-splitting sword strike at the falling temple. The heaven-splitting sword strike collided with the base of the golden temple in the air, but the temple completely shrugged off the attack as though it was nothing. Yuan's eyes widened with shock when there wasn't even a single scratch on the temple despite being struck by his most powerful attack. However, he didn't give up and tried it again, resulting in the same conclusion. "The temple is indestructible, Master." Tian'er's voice suddenly resounded. "How am I supposed to protect those people at the bottom if I cannot destroy that temple?" He cried out loud. "You must sacrifice your body to protect the mortals." "Use my body?" Yuan swallowed nervously when he realized what Tian'er wanted him to do. Why is he just standing there? He'll get squashed by the temple if he doesn't do anything. Min Li exclaimed in a worried voice. "Maybe it's because that is his trial," Feng Yuxiang said. A common trial in the stairway to heaven is endurance, which normally requires the challenger to endure a powerful pressure for a certain amount of time. In the young master's case, that golden temple is the pressure, she explained. That golden temple looks really heavy though. Is it even possible to endure that? Chu Liuxiang asked. The young master has no choice but to endure it or he will fail the trial. Once the golden temple arrived on top of Yuan, he decided to use his body to catch it. How did someone who started out so ordinary become so extraordinary? Yuan's anticipation grew the more he recalled his memories. Chapter 687. I have been an outer court disciple for an entire year now, yet I am still a 4th-level spirit apprentice. At this rate it will take another 3 years before I reach spirit warrior. Tianyang sighed as he sat inside his living quarters within the outer court of the Immortal Monastery. I thought that by becoming an official disciple I would receive the sect's support by receiving plentiful resources to help my cultivation. But alas, how naive was I back then to believe such a thing. As an outer court disciple, I am given a single spirit stone every 3 months to assist with my cultivation. But that spirit stone will only last us about a week if we cultivate sparingly. In order to acquire more resources, we must go into the hunting grounds or become an inner court disciple. However, I must enter the spirit master realm in order to apply for the inner court examination, and who knows how many years that will take me? If I want to grow stronger, I must enter the hunting grounds and find my own resources. With that in mind, Tianyang decided to enter the hunting grounds for the first time since he became an outer court disciple. The hunting grounds is a special area within the sect's territory where disciples go to hunt magical beasts and acquire treasures. Of course, all of this is within the sect's control, meaning that every magical beast and treasure found inside the hunting ground was put there by the sect to help their disciples. However, while the territory is under the sect's control, that didn't mean it wasn't a dangerous place. In fact, disciples can still lose their lives there and it happens quite often. And with a single sword in hand, Tianyang left his living quarters to enter the hunting grounds. I would like to enter the hunting grounds, Tianyang said to the sect elder sitting outside the entrance. The sect elder became speechless after hearing his words. You're reckless and crazy. She left him alone after saying those words, but for some reason she continued to watch over him from a distance. Chapter 688. Another year has passed since Yuan, Tianyang became an outer court disciple in the Immortal Monastery, and he has been going to the hunting grounds almost every single day without fail. Only during the days that he's too injured to move and the days that he has to cultivate that he doesn't enter the hunting grounds. However, despite his recklessness, he has managed to survive up to this point, and his cultivation saw a significant boost, reaching the 9th-level spirit apprentice only a year later. Good morning, Elder Li. Tianyang greeted the sect elder sitting outside the hunting grounds. Try not to die again today, Elder Li said to him, not even bothering to write his name down in the logbook. Even if Tianyang dies inside the hunting grounds, Elder Li has already memorized Tianyang's face and voice after seeing him so often, so he could tell if something had happened to Tianyang if he doesn't show up after a few days. After entering the hunting grounds, Tianyang went deeper into the place without hesitation, and if he encountered a magical beast he would always fight it, regardless of its cultivation. Nice. First kill of the day and I already have a monster core. Tianyang picked up the crystal after killing the magical beast with a single strike. Yeah, somebody help. Tianyang suddenly heard screaming, and the sound didn't seem very far away. Without thinking, he immediately began running towards the screaming. A minute later he arrived before 2 disciples, 1 male and 1 female and a magical beast. However, one of these disciplines, the male disciple was lying on the ground with a puddle of blood beneath him. Chapter 689. Fine, if you can help me, my body will be yours. Tianyang said to Elder Sunday. Elder Sun nodded. It's a promise. Come here at the same time a week from now. Okay. Tianyang left the hunting grounds and returned to his living quarters to spend the next week absorbing the monster cores that had acquired from the magical beasts within the hunting grounds. Even though he killed at least a dozen magical beasts every week for the last year, he would only get a single monster core for every 10 magical beasts he killed, and that's if he was lucky, so it was not as if he has a lot of monster cores to support his cultivation base. Furthermore, cultivating with monster cores isn't very healthy for cultivators due to how much impurities monster cores contain. However, unlike Yuan, Tianyang did not have the ability to swallow monster cores and instantly absorb all of its spiritual energies, so it would take him at least a week to finish absorbing a monster core. A week later, Tianyang left his living quarters and made his way towards the hunting grounds. After arriving at the area that Elder Sun oversees, he waited for her to show up. About 10 minutes later, Tianyang felt a presence suddenly appear behind him. He turned around to see Elder Sun standing there, but she had a solemn expression on her face. "It's been a long time since I saw you with such a serious face," Tianyang said when he saw her face that was basked in moonlight, making her look more beautiful than usual, especially her eyes that glistened like a clear lake. This made Yuan wonder what would happen if he didn't finish the bonus challenge and receive his reward. Would he lose the chance to regain a part of his memories forever? Or would it simply delay his process? Whatever is supposed to happen, he doesn't intend on finding out. 45 minutes later, Yuan has successfully endured 24 hours of this gruesome trial, putting an end to the third trial. Chapter 690. Ding. After receiving this notification, Yuan felt the weight on his body disappear, causing him to look up. The golden temple that had suddenly disappeared, replaced by a glowing orb of light that slowly approached Yuan's forehead. Yuan didn't reject the light and allowed it to enter him, and more memories began flowing inside his mind like a gush of water at a broken dam. However, he didn't have the time to indulge in these memories, as the scenery had changed back to its original background. Congratulations on passing your third trial, Master. You have an hour to rest before we start the next trial. Do you wish to rest or continue? Tianer's calm voice resounded after the trial ended. Yes, I want to rest. I will need all the time I can get after that trial. Yuan immediately sat down and began cultivating with his body still soaked in sweat. While he cultivated, a gentle breeze would blow around Yuan, magically cleaning his sweat from his body and his clothes. An hour later, Yuan stood up and began making his way towards the next trial. Welcome to your fourth and final trial, Master. Did I just hear final trial? Yuan asked for confirmation. That's correct. If you pass this one, you will get to ascend to the next realm. Tiana responded. Then what are you waiting for? Let's get this trial started. The scenery changed a moment later. 10, 20, 50 times, Yuan had lost count of how many times Head repeated this tragedy, but he did not stop, and he continued to return to the Immortal Caves, hoping that Head be able to save her in time even once. Unfortunately, the stairway to heaven did not grant him that wish, and it continued to torture Yuan's soul in a never-ending cycle where he's forced to watch Azure die by the demon's hands while he was only a few moments away from being able to save her. Chapter 691. What kind of trial is this? Meishio mumbled in a dazed voice as she watched Yuan defeat the demon multiple times. By the looks of it, this trial appears to be some sort of heart demon trial. Feng Yuxiang said. What is that? In essence, heart demons are stress, a negative emotion that looms in the deepest part of one's heart. When someone experiences a traumatic event or something terrifying, there is a very high chance that whatever happened becomes their heart demon, and these negative emotions become a mental barrier which hinders their cultivation from advancing. Heart demons are very common, and they exist in almost everyone, including mortals, but they affect cultivators the most. Heart demons can be formed by any kind of stress if it's strong enough. Fearing that you'll never find love, being insecure about your appearances, worrying about not being able to return your debt. Even one's obsessions can also become one's heart demon. As for the young master's trial, he will most likely have to defeat his heart demon in order to pass this trial. Feng Yuxiang sighed. So, basically anything emotional can become a heart demon? How does one even defeat their heart demon? Chu Liuxiang asked. It depends on their heart demon. If someone is insecure about their appearances, they need to stop being insecure. If one fears they cannot find love, they must stop fearing. In the young master's case, he must stop blaming himself for the death of that young lady. That sounds easier said than done. Chu Liuxiang shook her head. Of course. It's not easy to defeat one's heart demon, and even powerful immortals that can change another's fate can fall victim to their own heart demon. Furthermore, even if one manages to defeat their current heart demon, another one could show up in the future when they experience something emotional again. This is something all cultivators must confront at one point in their lives, and they either succumb to their heart demon or they defeat it. Feng Yuxiang sighed. Meanwhile, Yuan continued to repeat his nightmares. Damn it. Why hasn't the trial ended already? I have defeated the demon countless times by now. Yuan cried out loud after being sent back to the ancestor's tomb. Chapter 692. Once again you're late to the party, killing her. The demon looked at Yuan with a smirk on its face. Yuan closed his eyes and took a deep breath before releasing it slowly. You're right. I killed her by being too slow. She died because I was too weak. He opened his eyes and the demon was no longer there. Instead, Yuan could see himself standing where the demon stood, almost as though the demon had transformed into his appearance. Finally, you're accepting the fact that you're responsible for her death. The demon's voice resounded while wearing his appearance. That's not right. I have accepted the fact that I couldn't protect her even before I left the Jaded Garden. I blamed myself for her death and I still do. I just didn't want to deal with the guilt of killing her and I even tried to forget about it. However, I now know that's not possible. I understand now that I will have to live with this guilt for the rest of my life. I need to stop dwelling on the past and start moving forward. Therefore, Yuan turned to look at Azure, who was no longer lying on the ground but standing a few meters away with a calm expression on her face. I'm sorry that I couldn't save you in time, Azure. I'm sorry that I couldn't defeat the demon fast enough. I broke my last promise to protect you, so let me make another promise to you. I promise that I will never forget you, regardless of how much pain I feel every time I think of you, and I promise you that I will never let something like this happen again. After taking a deep breath, Yuan turned around and began walking away from the Immortal Caves. Yuan, please, don't leave me here. Didn't you promise to protect me? Azure's voice resounded from behind him, but Yuan didn't look back and continued walking away. Goodbye, Azure. Although he couldn't see it with his back turned, the scenery behind him was slowly crumbling away into the darkness. Eventually, Yuan returned to the stairway to heaven. There is a designated area for people who successfully climb the stairway to heaven. However, this means that there will be people waiting for us there once we leave this place, and they will be trying to recruit us to their families and sects, so we should prepare ourselves. Feng Yuxiang said. Chapter 693. After spending about 10 minutes climbing, Yuan and the others finally reached the end of the staircase, where a single door stood. I guess we're here, Yuan said as he approached the door and opened it without hesitation. Are we ready? He turned around and asked the ladies following right behind him. Once they all nodded, Yuan walked through the door, disappearing from the stairway to heaven. Ding. Furthermore, an announcement was made for all players within the lower heavens to witness. This announcement shocked all players currently inside except for Yuan and his group, as they were no longer in the lower heavens, thus unable to see the announcement. And unbeknownst to Yuan, countless players began making their way towards the stairway to heaven to see for themselves if they could really ascend to the next realm for free. Thank you, I guess. Anyways, I am going to take a bath before going to bed since it's nighttime right now. You can join me if you want, Chu Liuxiang said to him before entering the bathroom that was in the same room as their bedroom. Chapter 694. Darling, you can use the bathroom now. Chu Liuxiang left the bathroom with nothing but her towel that was loosely wrapped around her slim body. I also changed the water in the bathtub for you. Thank you. Yuan calmly entered the bathroom shortly after. Inside the bathroom, Yuan tossed a handful of medicine leaves into the bathtub. And while he waited for the water to soak the medicine, he went to take a quick shower. Once the bathtub was ready, Yuan entered it and began absorbing the medicine, tempering his body for the next hour. By the time he left the bathroom, Chu Liuxiang was already deep asleep while wearing her see-through pajamas. Yuan focused on her sleeping face for a moment before going to sleep himself. I wonder if they managed to trade treasures with the giants safely. He wondered about the Huang family as he fell asleep. Of course, he knew that it was only a trial, but everything felt so real that he couldn't help but think about it. The following morning, right as the sun peeked over the horizon, Yuan was woken up by the sound of his door being knocked on. Wow, I think this is the first time I've heard you curse, Yuan. Although I understand your feelings, I also believe this to be a good thing, as it allows the players more chances to catch up. You're too far ahead after all. Huh? Whatever. Yuan sighed a moment later. What's done is already done, and it's not like I have any control over it. Anyways, the food is getting cold. Let's continue after breakfast. Thus they stopped talking and began eating. Chapter 695. After breakfast, Wang Ming asked Yuan, "What are you going to do now that you've ascended to the next world?" "I'm not sure yet. There's so much that I could do that I don't know where to start." Yuan shook his head. "Do you plan on ascending again?" "Of course. I want to reach the highest realm there is in. That will probably take a few years. Even then I want to do it, I have to." Yuan then asked the others, "What about you guys? Are you still in the lower heavens? Do you plan on ascending?" "I don't know about them, but I also intend on ascending soon," Wang Ming said, and he continued, "However, I need to prepare myself before I ascend. A lot of people ascended without any preparations, and many of these players have died shortly after arriving because they were not prepared for that place. The monsters there are simply too powerful for them. The worst part is that they're now stuck there without any way of returning to the lower heavens. That makes sense since the spirit heaven's overall difficulty is higher than the lower heavens," Yuan said. "Despite that fact, there are still a lot of players ascending." Lang sighed. "These players are so greedy for resources that they are blinded by the reality that most of them won't even be able to leave the city without getting killed by monsters that are far above their level. Anyways, I will also ascend once I finish preparing myself. Ever since I joined the faction and started living here, I have been spending more time in." Meishio could feel her heart trying to burst out of her chest after muttering these words that required all of her courage. Yuan was left speechless by her sudden question, and his mind immediately began scrambling for an answer. Chapter 696. After a long moment of silence, Yuan sighed with a bittersweet smile on his face. "Asking me to choose between you or Lulu isn't fair, Meishio. You're both equally important to me, so I don't know what to say." Yuan chose his words wisely so that he doesn't have to pick one and upset the other. However, Meishio wasn't satisfied with such an answer and continued to push him. "That doesn't answer my question. You can either pick one of us, or decide to not pick either of us." Yuan retreated into silence once again. Seeing this, Meishio mustered her courage again before speaking. "Yuan? After separating with you because of what was happening at the Jaded Garden, I realized how much I hated it, being separated from you, that is. I was also worried that I would lose you to the demon, and the thought of losing you forever nearly drove me crazy." She took a deep breath and continued, "I'm not asking you to abandon Lulu and choose only me, but I don't want you to leave me. You know, Lulu told me that she wouldn't mind sharing you with others as long as she could remain by your side. I didn't understand her feelings back then, and I even found it quite abnormal. However, I am starting to understand her feelings now. As long as I get to stay by your side, I don't care if you choose to start a family with Lulu or whoever." "You want me to start a family with you and Lulu? Can I do something like that? How does it even work?" Yuan asked after hearing her words. "It's definitely uncommon, but it's not impossible. I think the most important thing is that we all come to an agreement. As long as we are all okay with it, it should work out," Meishio said. And she continued in a low voice, "Lulu has already given her approval and I am now giving you my approval, so it's all up to you now, Yuan." Yuan began pondering Meixius' words in silence. Meanwhile, Meishio started working on the front of his body. However, since Yuan was busy pondering for an answer, there was no response between his legs. She opened her arms and embraced him a moment later, and they both fell onto the bed. "Yuan, this is my commitment to you. My love for you," Meishio whispered in a low voice before she kissed him on the bed. Chapter 697. Reader's discretion is advised. Mature content ahead. Meixius' locked bedroom was dimly lit with the only light source being the sunlight that peeked through the closed curtains, and currently inside this room, Yuan was lying on the bed with Meishio lying on his bare chest. The two of them had been kissing each other for a while now, albeit amateurish. It was more than enough for them to express their feelings for each other. "What should I do now?" Yuan asked in a low voice after they stopped kissing. "You don't need to do anything, just lie down and let me do everything. This is also a lesson after all," she responded in a similarly low voice. However, Meishio was no longer feeling nervous and bashful, and it was Yuan who was feeling such emotions, almost as though she had transferred all of these feelings to Yuan through kissing. Meishio suddenly began to kiss his body, slowly moving down with every kiss. And while she was doing that, she was also recalling what her mother taught her. Even though she had no experience in this sort of thing, Meifeng had made sure to drill enough information into her head through videos and books to make sure that she would satisfy Yuan properly when the time came, and that time is now. Once Meishio reached the lower parts of Yuan's body, she used her hand to slow stroke the throbbing rod between Yuan's legs, and it felt hotter than usual, most likely because it has been a while since he was last relieved. Meanwhile, Yuan watched Meixius' every movement through his divine sense while being absorbed in this tingling sensation that was making his body filled with excitement, and it was a type of excitement that was different from what he was used to. And since he was using divine sense, he was able to see every inch of Meixius' perfect body. Suddenly, Meishio changed her movements, and both of Yuan's eyebrows lifted with surprise when Meishio unexpectedly opened her mouth and placed his rod inside. I wasn't supposed to do that? Yuan asked in an innocent voice after he released everything into her, leaving Meishio speechless. Chapter 698. Yuan. For further references, if you do not plan on impregnating the person you're making love to, you shouldn't release your stuff inside them because that's how you actually make babies. And accidents like that can cause a lot of trouble for you and your partner. Meishio didn't know whether to laugh or cry at her predicament. Does that mean we're going to have a baby soon? I'm sorry. Yuan immediately felt bad about his actions, especially since Meishio had specifically said that she didn't want a baby now. Well, it is also my fault for not explaining things to you before we did it. I guess I was also a little impatient. You're not angry? Yuan raised his eyebrows. No, I'm not. Meishio shook her head. And she continued, furthermore, it's not like I am guaranteed to have a baby just because you released it inside once. There are also things I can do to prevent it, such as taking birth control pills. They're incredibly effective according to my mother. If you say so. Meishio looked at Yuan's body a moment later and couldn't help but smile. You still have energy to continue? Is it because you're a cultivator or is it just your body that's vigorous? She wondered out loud. I don't know. Yuan responded honestly. Do you want to continue? Meishio suddenly asked. I do. He eagerly nodded. And the two of them continued making love to each other for 3 more hours. Once they were fully satisfied, Meishio took Yuan into the bathroom to wash his body again. Yuan, please keep what happened today a secret from the others, especially you, Ro. Who knows how she'll react if she finds out what we did? Meishio said to him as she washed his body. Don't worry, my lips are sealed. Yuan said with a smile. In fact, he's had a smile on his face for the past 3 hours. Chapter 699. Chu Liuxiang woke up from her long slumber when it was almost evening. After stretching her body on the bed, she sat up and looked around the dark room with a dazed face. She quickly noticed Yuan, who was still cultivating in the balcony. After staring at Yuan's figure for a couple of moments, she got off the bed and went inside the bathroom to wash her face. As she walked out of the bathroom, she noticed her cell phone ringing. Father? I wonder what he wants. Chu Liuxiang answered the call after realizing who the caller was. Hello? Father? Did something happen? My dear daughter. When do you plan on letting us know that you have returned to the mountain? Chu Shijian's sighing voice resounded through the phone. Oh, I completely forgot. Sorry, Father. I planned on calling you once I settled in this place, but I had spent the past week inside. Chu Liuxiang said. You never showed interest in that game before. In fact, you even refused to play it after trying it out for a few days. Her father said in a surprised voice. Well, I didn't have Yuan by my side before and I had no reason to play. Things are different now that we're playing together. The game seems so much more intriguing when I follow him compared to playing with the family. Yuan? I heard about his most recent achievement. Had opened a floodgate to the next realm for all players. And I was there to witness everything from the beginning to end. If you were there to witness his trials and what he had to endure, you would admire him even more. Chu Liuxiang said in a somewhat proud voice. Meishio pondered for a moment before speaking. Well, there's this convenience store a few minutes away and they have a couple of restaurants there. Maybe we can eat out today. That sounds great. I will tell the others you can take your time. Yuan said before returning to the dining room to let the others know of the situation. Chapter 700. After she fixed her appearance and dressed appropriately, Meishio went outside to find Yuan and the others. Sorry for this. I lost track of time and forgot about dinner. Meishio apologized to the others. Don't worry about it. It's not even your obligation to cook for us, so we cannot complain even if you decide to stop cooking for us. Wang Bingbing said to her. My sister's right. If you need a break, just let us know. We can take care of our own dinner, said Wang Ming. By the way, who knew there were restaurants on this mountain? I wasn't aware of their existence until Meishio mentioned it and I looked it up. Shilang said. I was also surprised by this information. Shimurong agreed. I saw a tall building on our way to the mansion. Perhaps that's where they are located. Wu Zhao recalled seeing a mall. Yes, that's the place. Meishio confirmed. There are other stores besides restaurants there, such as a convenience store and even clothing stores just like a real mall. I was also told by a worker there that everything inside the mall is free. What? Really? That sounds too good to be true. Wang Ming said. Does it? Do you think about it, we paid $4 billion for a house here. That's more than enough to buy multiple malls, not to mention our ridiculous property tax. Wang Bingbing said. Chapter 701. The following morning, Yuan woke up earlier than anticipated and decided to let Chu Liuxiang sleep a little longer while he went to train with the others. I thought you needed a few days to rest, Li Jinxi said to him when he arrived. I guess I didn't need that much time to rest after all. Li Jinxi had no complaints, and the two of them began sparring with each other until it was time for breakfast. Yuan returned to his room to wake Chu Liuxiang up before entering the bathroom for a quick shower. Once they were prepared, they went downstairs and into the dining room together. Of course, breakfast was already prepared by Meishio by the time they arrived. Meishio, we can hire someone to cook for us instead if you want. I feel bad for letting you spoil us. Wang Bingbing said to her. I don't mind it really. I consider cooking as a hobby, and I really do enjoy cooking for everyone, she said. Wang Bingbing smiled and said, You're not only pretty but also hard-working and great with housework. You'll be a great wife in the future, and your future husband is definitely one lucky man. Thank you. Meishio responded with a slight blush on her face. When Wang Bingbing mentioned her future husband, all of the men in the room glanced at Yuan, who already had his mouth full of food. After all, most of these people that came out of the stairway to heaven and entered their world from the lower heavens were only spirit apprentices, and nobody believed for a second that a spirit apprentice could possibly climb the stairway to heaven, much less thousands of them at once. Therefore, they could only come to the conclusion that the stairway to heaven is broken, hence their current situation. However, there was nothing the natives of this world could do but let the players swarm their world. At the end of the day, the players have already ascended, and it was not as though they could force the players to go back to the lower heavens. Chapter 702, Free Divine. After leaving the hotel, Yuan and the others wandered around the city asking the pedestrians if there was a myriad of techniques in the city while trying their best to avoid the players. After half an hour of speaking to random people, they eventually found the right person to speak with. Yes, the myriad of techniques should be 5 blocks down that direction. Thank you. Once Yuan had the directions, they immediately made their way to the store. Welcome to the myriad of techniques. If this is your first time at our store, please put your hand on this crystal ball. A woman that Yuan didn't recognize greeted them at the entrance. It's a different person again. How often do they change out the workers here? Yuan wondered to himself. Chu Liuxiang placed her hands on the crystal ball since this is her first time at the store. And sure enough, just like everyone that follows Yuan, she had a heavenly destiny. A heavenly destiny. The woman was surprised to see the results. Congratulations. You can access the first and second floor of the store. Sometime later they arrived on the 4th floor and to their surprise, it was multiple times larger than the previous 3 floors combined. Chapter 703. Wow. Just how massive is this place? I cannot even see the end of the room from here. Yuan mumbled in a dazed voice. Can you even call this a room? There's a clear sky as the ceiling. Chu Liuxiang said as she stared at the sky above them. That's not a real sky. It's only an illusion created by the formation. Feng Yuxiang said. What's the point of that? For the atmosphere, I guess. There's also a lot more people on this floor. Yuan said. How does one find the cultivation techniques they are looking for in this vast place? It would take days if not longer to check every shelf in here. Just as Yuan asked that question, he noticed that not far away from them, there was a stall with the sign customer support written on it. Never mind. Let's go over there. Hello, how may I help you? The woman working the desk greeted them when they got close. Hello, I am wondering if there's a map or something that could help us navigate this place. Yuan asked her. This must be your first time here. Give me a second. The woman reached under her desk and retrieved a jade slip before handing it to him. You will have all the information you need inside. If you're looking for a certain cultivation technique or a certain category, it's all there. What's the difference between internal energy and spiritual energy? Yuan asked. Well, spiritual energy is what we absorb, and internal energy is what spiritual energy becomes after being absorbed and refined. In essence, it's our cultivation. Feng Yuxiang explained. But to be honest, they're pretty much the same thing. Some people prefer calling it spiritual energy while others call it internal energy. In the end, it's all about preferences. Chapter 704. If most techniques are for people who use internal energy, how does that help me find one that's suitable? Chu Liuxiang asked. If you're looking for a suitable technique, then you should pick a technique that complements the attribute of your spiritual veins. Feng Yuxiang said. Spiritual veins? What is that, and how do I find my attribute? Spiritual veins are organs that cultivators produce alongside their dantian when they first become cultivators, and they are actually what absorbs the spiritual energy in the air. The higher the quality of one's spiritual veins, the easier and faster their cultivation will be. Feng Yuxiang explained. And she continued, for example, if two cultivators start cultivating from the same starting point, the one with ordinary spiritual veins might reach Spirit Warrior in 4 years, but the one with better quality spiritual veins will be able to reach that same level within half the time. Spiritual veins can also possess certain attributes, making the cultivation of certain techniques easier and faster. If someone has fire attribute spiritual veins, they would be able to learn fire techniques twice as fast if not even faster than someone that does not have fire attribute spiritual veins. Of course, not all spiritual veins possess an attribute. As for how one can tell if their spiritual veins possess an attribute, there are treasures out there that do the job. Do you want to see if your spiritual veins possess an element? Feng Yuxiang asked Chu Liuxiang afterward. Yes, I would like to know my element, if I have one. Chu Liuxiang nodded. Okay, but since I don't have such treasures right now, we will have to do this another way. I will require a drop of your blood. Feng Yuxiang said. My blood? Yes, I can identify if your spiritual veins possess an element through your blood by tasting it. You're going to drink my blood? Chu Liuxiang raised her eyebrows, feeling a little uneasy about letting someone drink her blood. Feng Yuxiang smiled and said, in case you forgot, I am not human. I am a divine beast. Does this mean I can basically have up to 10,000 starry abyss fighting for me at once? Will I even be able to control that many at once? Yuan closed his eyes and imagined 10,000 flying daggers surrounding him. The only downside is its enormous chi requirements. If I activate 10,000 ghost weapons at once, that means it will consume 100 million chi every second. How much chi do I even have at the moment? I can't tell because of the bugged system. Chapter 705. Even though it will cost a lot of chi to use this technique to its full potential, I don't think I will really need all 10,000 ghost weapons. 100 is already more than enough, much less 10,000. After pondering for some time, Yuan decided to pick up the 10,000 ghost blades technique. Of course, there were still many more techniques that he could choose from, so he continued looking through all available techniques. In the end, Yuan couldn't find another technique that was more interesting than the 10,000 ghost blades, so he decided to just save his free techniques for another time. Have you found any suitable techniques yet? Yuan asked Chu Liuxiang after returning to them. I have about 10 more techniques to go through, but I found 2 that I am interested in. You'll see which one I like better later, she said. Yuan nodded his head and waited for her to finish. Sometime later, Chu Liuxiang placed all of the techniques that she wasn't interested in aside to look at the 2 techniques that she found interesting. I need some advice on which technique I should get, Chu Liuxiang said to them. The first technique is called Everlasting Ice Field. It is an area of effect technique that can slow and even immobilize my opponents. The second technique is called Glacial Ice Dragon. I can create an ice dragon using my internal energy and attack my enemies with it. They're both heaven rank techniques too. I really like both of them, making it difficult for me to decide. Yuan smiled and said, do you even need to decide? If you like both of them, just take both. Really? You don't mind? I still have 14 free techniques, 12 if we count yours. That's more than enough even if I give a free technique to everyone within the faction. Yuan nodded. Chapter 706. So this is the Array Masters Association. The building is a lot more ordinary than it looks from afar. Yuan was used to seeing extravagant and luxurious buildings, so he was a little surprised to see the Array Masters Association looking so plain. Let's go inside, shall we? Upon entering the building, Yuan could see a long line that snaked around the first floor, taking up half of the floor's space. At glance, these people appeared to be waiting to buy something from the front desk, but they were all given a piece of paper before getting sent to the second floor. Yuan looked around to find someone that appeared to work there and approached him. Hello, where can I buy array techniques? You mean array combinations? Are you an array master? The man asked him. Yes, I know a few arrays. Yuan nodded. Just because you know a few arrays doesn't make you an array master, kid. The man sneered and he continued, in order to be officially considered an array master, you must pass the array master assessment. Only when you have the badge of an official array master can you buy array combinations from our Array Masters Association. So I have to join the association before I can purchase array combinations? Yuan raised his eyebrows. What's the difference between this and joining a sect for their techniques? I think you're misunderstanding something. We're not recruiting you to join us. The Array Masters Association has the authority to give others the identification of an array master. You can sign up to join us if you wish, but it's not a requirement. There are many array masters out there that aren't part of our association, and there is no punishment for not wanting to join us. However, if you don't take the assessment and become an official array master, you're not considered a real array master, and most places that sell array combinations require you to be an official array master. Is that so? Then where do I sign up for this array master assessment? Yuan then asked. The man pointed at the long queue in the store. Chapter 707. The three judges were no doubt shocked about Yuan's cultivation base at his age. However, when they continued to read the paper and saw that he only has a week of experience in arrays, they raised their eyebrows. Is this correct? You've only been studying arrays for about a week? The beautiful woman asked him, no longer looking so bored. That's correct. Yuan confirmed in a calm manner. The three judges looked at him with dumbfounded faces. Just who is this kid? How dare he come to the Array Masters Association when he's just a beginner? Is he mocking them? You know, even the most talented array master in the spirit heaven in the last 500 years had to study for 9 full months before he could become an official array master, and you're already trying to become one a week after you started studying? Although I like ambitious men, you're way over your head with this one. The beautiful woman said. As a fellow spirit lord, I don't want to be too harsh on you, but you're mocking us, all of the array masters, by coming here today. The handsome man said. After a moment of silence, the old man laughed. What's the harm in letting him try? I'm sure it'll be more entertaining than the last couple hundred entries. Are you sure, Senior Huang? It will definitely be a waste of time. The handsome man said. Just like every other profession in the cultivation world, array masters also have a hierarchy system to separate the inexperienced from the experienced. Array masters are separated into 9 different levels, with level 1 array masters being the lowest in the hierarchy, and the higher level the array symbol, the more difficult they are to create and combine. The judges are supposed to use only level 1 array symbols for the array master assessment, but after feeling ridiculed by Yuan's results in the first test, the handsome man decided to take matters into his own hand by upping the difficulty, as he believed that Yuan wasn't the beginner that he claims to be. Chapter 708. The other 2 judges realized what the handsome man was trying to do, but they didn't say anything, as they also wanted to see how Yuan would handle this situation. Will he be able to create a level 3 formation? Senior Huang wondered inwardly as Yuan took his time analyzing the array combinations. I don't recognize any of those array symbols. Yuan stared at the handsome man's array combination with a pondering expression. He was certain that he didn't miss any of the basic array symbols from Huang Shaoli's manuals. However, the handsome man had created array symbols that he didn't recognize, and they appear more complex than the basic symbols. They must be more advanced array symbols that I haven't learned yet. How troublesome. Yuan did not even think for a second that the handsome man was trying to ridicule him by increasing the assessment's difficulty. He just thought it was part of the assessment and didn't think much about it. Let's just deal with the other two first before I try the difficult one. I only need 2 out of 3 to pass this test anyway. With that in mind, Yuan ignored the handsome man's array combination and focused on the other two. And within minutes he figured how they were combined and what array symbols were used. Yuan started with the beautiful woman's array combination. He first created the array symbols before combining them into a fully functional array. Pass. The beautiful woman gave her judgment after seeing the results. He moved on to Senior Huang's array combination next, and although it was harder than the last array combination, he still managed to crack it and understand everything about it in just a few minutes. I understand. Thank you, Senior. Yuan bowed to him. Chapter 709. Then let us continue to the third and final test. For the third test, we simply need you to create an array, the stronger the better, and we will test its strength. Senior Huang said to him. Yuan nodded and created a confinement array a few seconds later. Impressive. Senior Huang muttered in a dazed voice, as he has never seen such a powerful basic array before. Is this really a level 1 array? Even level 2 arrays would not be able to contest against this. The beautiful woman mumbled to herself as she inspected the array with great focus. The handsome man, however, remained seated in his chair behind the table, almost like he had no intention of even looking at the array. Yuan figured that it was because he could see the array from that distance, so he didn't need to look at it closely. Sometime later, the other judges returned to their seat with a look of fascination on their faces, looking like their views on this world had been broadened. Ahem. Senior Huang cleared his throat before speaking. Yuan, you have passed the assessment. I don't think any of us would deny someone of your talents as an array master. In fact, it would be disingenuous if we made you a level 1 array master. Chapter 710. Here, this is your badge. As long as you have this, you can purchase array combinations from any store and treat any Array Masters Association as though it's your second home. Senior Huang handed Yuan a green badge. Ding. There's an array inside this badge? Yuan could immediately tell upon touching it. That's right. Without the array, the badge is just a useless piece of metal, and it makes it harder to be replicated by others who want to profit from it. Senior Huang nodded. The beautiful woman added, being an array master is more prestigious than one might think since it's not an easy profession. Some might argue that it's even more difficult than being an alchemist, so there are many people who pretend to be an array master to receive benefits that they don't deserve. Therefore, you need to make sure that you don't lose that badge. If you happen to lose that badge, you will need to partake in another assessment because we have no proof that you're an array master. Yuan nodded. I will keep the badge safe. Before you leave, Yuan, Senior Huang suddenly said, do you have any intentions of joining the Array Masters Association? There are many benefits in joining us, such as free array combinations and being taught by the best of the best array masters from around the 9 heavens. The 9 heavens? Yuan raised his eyebrows. Yes. Did you think the Array Masters Association only existed in this world? The Array Masters Association is one of the biggest factions in the 9 heavens, and we can be found in every single realm. Chapter 711. Yes, I am. Here is my badge. Yuan showed her the Array Master's badge. Thank you very much, Senior Array Master. If you're looking for a specific array combination or anything specific, just let me know. Yuan then said, then I would like an array combination for sealed spatial rings and storage pouches. Just for confirmation, arrays that remove sealed spatial rings and storage pouches, is that correct? She asked. Yes, that's right. I understand. Please follow me. Yuan and the others followed this woman to a counter. She picked out a couple of manuals from under the desk and laid them out before him. Are all of these? Yuan raised his eyebrows as he didn't expect there to be so many array combinations for the same purpose. All of these array combinations are for unsealing spatial rings and storage pouches, but they all have different strengths. One can have a higher chance of success while another one can be easier to use. It all depends on the array combination. Which of these have the highest success rate? Yuan asked. That would be this one, the absolute unsealing array, but it's a level 3 array combination. Since Yuan is only a level 2 array master, he would not be able to use the level 3 array combination, so it wouldn't make sense for him to buy it. Okay, I will take that. And do you also have manuals for level 2 and level 3 array symbols? Of course. Give me a moment. Chapter 7:12. After spending an entire day unsealing Feng Yuxiang's spatial rings and storage pouches, Yuan was finally confident enough to work on the Gu family's spatial rings. You can do it, young master. Feng Yuxiang cheered him from the side. Yuan nodded and retrieved Gu Tao's spatial ring. He has decided to unseal this one first, leaving Patriarch Gu's spatial rings for last. Gu Tao was only a spirit warrior, so his seal isn't particularly strong. In just a couple of minutes, Yuan had managed to unseal Gu Tao's spatial ring. Wow, there's a bunch of spirit stones and monster cores inside this spatial ring. Yuan was immediately impressed by Gu Tao's rich spatial ring. There's about 1,000 spirit stones in here that are worth 10 million gold, a couple dozen spirit warrior monster cores and earth-grade treasure and some pills. Besides the spirit stones, pretty much everything inside Gu Tao's spatial ring was worthless to him, who was already a spirit lord. 10 million gold. This is more than I'd anticipated, so I am satisfied with the results. As for the other stuff, I don't think they will sell for much, so I will just save it for now. Maybe I can even give it to Wang Ming and the others. Let's move on to Patriarch Gu's spatial ring now. As for the treasures worth less than 100,000 golds and the useful ones, he decided to keep them so that he could give them to the members of his faction later. What should we do with these techniques? Should we also sell them? Yuan asked Feng Yuxiang. If it's not a taboo technique, then it should be safe. She nodded. Chapter 7:13. Taboo techniques? What is that? And how can I tell if a technique is taboo or not? Yuan asked. Can I see the techniques? Feng Yuxiang then asked. Here you go. Yuan handed all of the blood sex techniques to her. Feng Yuxiang looked at each of them and separated them into two different piles. The techniques on the right are normal techniques while the ones on the left are taboo techniques. You can tell the difference based on their aura. Taboo techniques all have a sinister aura. Feng Yuxiang said. All techniques considered taboo by the heavens will automatically have this sinister aura, so even if you copy it on a new piece of paper, it would still have a sinister aura. As for how the heavens decide which technique is taboo, I have no idea. I see. So we cannot sell the taboo techniques, right? Well, that is not entirely correct. There is nothing stopping you from selling taboo techniques, but most places will refuse to buy them, so you can only sell them in the black market, but that is not recommended and you could offend the heavens by selling them. If we can't sell them, what can we do with them? Feng Yuxiang pondered for a moment and said, the most logical thing is to destroy them so that they don't spread around, as it could cause chaos if someone evil acquires them. All taboo techniques have a high chance of making those that cultivate them crazy after all. Okay, I will destroy them. And without hesitation, Yuan ripped the techniques into many pieces. Ding. Yuan nodded. Okay. Can you help me sell the treasures that we can sell? Would be my pleasure. Feng Yuxiang nodded with an eager smile. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.